Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And we have all your news and geopolitics today. But as you can see, the cover stories were Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, both crashing and burning in different ways. I must say, I was on Candace's side for a long time. And now it's quite embarrassing that I was even attached with that. I mean, Charlie Kirk was a time traveler. We're going to get into all of it.
Not the first time she says it, but as always, Nat was right. Nat is always right.
The NAR, Nat is always right. Or Nick is always right.
Yeah.
That being said, Ben Shapiro did do a sit-down podcast with Gavin Newsom. That was interesting. There was an expose on the Daily Wire showing how they could possibly be manipulating their views and how exactly they're doing that. We'll get into all that. But before we do, if you're not subscribed, please do so and hit that like button so we can kind of break the algorithm. They have been suppressing us a little bit lately.
Yes, as always. But before we start, I will say hello to everybody and thank you for joining us. Again, don't forget to subscribe. It does really help us out. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. To cross that monetization threshold, we can now have super chats, but right now we read all the comments anyways. And yeah, that's what I said there. And hello to Walker as well. Hello, Walker. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so breaking news first.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Okay.
And I will say before we start, we did change our thumbnail. Man, that was a really bad thumbnail we had when it was all red, but it was getting good views. So I was like, we can't change it. But we sat down last night, we reworked it. I like what you came up with. So
It took a few hours to do so as well.
Okay, let's get into the breaking story here. And we'll start with Candace Owens before we get into the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro.
Okay, so for breaking news, you had this from Ian Miles Chong.
Oh yeah, before we get into Candace Owens, let's just cover this real quick and we'll get back to this when we get to the Middle East section of geopolitics.
So Ian Miles Chong, for some reason you picked him, says breaking happening now. The United States is rapidly redeploying the entire USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group out of the South China Sea and steaming full speed toward the Middle East as the US prepares to unleash major strikes on Iran, or maybe prepares to unleash.
Yeah, it looks like he's kind of delaying it. We're not sure if he's going to go with the strikes or not. That being said, he's definitely applying pressure. A lot of those assets that were surrounding Venezuela are now headed to the Middle East. This is going to put a ton of pressure on the region. There's a lot of Iran backers like China kind of stepping up, saying they're backing them. This could escalate. We'll see what happens. But I just want to put that as breaking news so people knew that was kind of going on because it was literally slipping under the radar. I thought that was huge.
Yes. And also because this was the only story in the breaking news, I will say hello to Nan. Hello, Nan. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and let us know what you're cooking because Nan is always cooking. But now let's move on to actual personality politics.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And yes, the main story is Candace Owens because she has now I can now feel confident, even more confident in saying that she is insane and has been this whole time.
Well, before we get into it, I just want to say I love that personality politics little segment we have from that song. It's one of my favorite songs. I listen to it probably more than any other song. It's a meme song about Alex Jones. If you haven't seen it, watch it on YouTube because it's Alex Jones lipping a lot of the lyrics. So
yeah. Well, it's lyrics based on a lot of things that Alex Jones has said. I'd love to get the artist's name. I'll look for it and then I'll give it.
Okay, let's get back into Candace though. Sorry, yes. I've been wanting to say that for a few weeks since we put it in there.
So
okay.
Candace.
Yeah, let's go into the first article we have here.
From Visgrad, funnily enough, Candace Owens says Charlie Kirk might have been a time traveler who was monitored by agents since his childhood because they knew his future. She also said that streetlights turned off when he ran, kind of like the Flash. And she has been saying this for a while. She did show the messages from years ago where she said, oh, I feel like an alien and you're like a time traveler in her weird romance novel.
And she's talking about different timelines like the MCU. I mean, she's been watching too many Marvel movies and she's trying to get the audience to go along with it. I mean, I thought I was the only one that noticed this, but then people started clipping it and I'm glad they did. I mean, I used to go down every rabbit hole every day with this woman and I was starting to drink the Kool-Aid. I'm glad I kind of pulled back at a certain point. There was just nothing there.
And I do feel now actually kind of bad and sad for all the women that still listen to her because it's mainly women.
Why did Charlie think he was a time traveler? He said, as I showed you in earlier messages, that he was a time traveler and he had to find me. Is that just something people are saying to their homies in text messages? And again, not anything that I would have placed so much emphasis on back when he was saying it, but it came to fruition. The other parts, he did die young. Why did he think that him dying young was necessary in order to change things? He did die young. It is related to Turning Point USA. In some way or another, at the very least, we can all agree it's related to him speaking at a campus event for Turning Point USA. I'm totally occupied by this. I tell you, I read these messages and I'm going, what is this? What is reality, actually? And Charlie died. Yes, like I said, it was related to this organization. And I think we would all agree that his death and the manner that they did it changed the world in ways that I don't think we can fully realize, or certainly not in a way that I can articulate. You just cannot pretend that all of this is one big unhappy coincidence. It's entirely plausible, I think plausible, that they knew something about Charlie. And that's why they had him marked and had him monitored and had him likely followed since he was young. And maybe they thought, like the agents think, that if they swarmed him and they stayed with him and they pretended to be his friend, that ultimately they could control Charlie and perhaps change an outcome. They could literally...
Anything's possible at a certain point. But I mean, when you go down all these rabbit holes in such a public manner, you not only make a fool of yourself, you're making a fool of your audience and the people that followed you, like me.
But I'll also continue. And the allegations and accusations that she continues to throw in this clip against TPUSA and others also don't end up.
Well,
once you mix it with the whole alien time traveler theory.
They were filming a movie on Fort Huachuca. She went into that full script, almost trying to connect the script of the movie to things that are happening in real life. I mean, not directly doing it, but she implies a lot of things here, and she's really reaching. I will say, I think she's trying to transition now away from this somewhat. She brought Myron Gaines on the show today. They still brought up a lot of what's happening with TPUSA, but I think this is the point where she's probably going to be bring more guests, have more interviews, and slowly trying to transition away. And if anything comes up, then she'll kind of hit on it, but she's going to need to really make a pivot, but she can't make an extremely hard pivot because her audience is going to ask a lot of questions, because a lot of people that are still watching her have gone down these conspiracy rabbit holes with her.
Change an outcome related to Charlie. So when for the first time in his life, because I do believe he was managed, I mean, I've already said I was handled. I didn't recognize that I had agents. For the first time in his life, Charlie peeks his head up and starts to push back in a meaningful way. They couldn't stop him from becoming bigger. That seemed to be inevitable. But they panicked. They seem to have panicked. Right? I mean, this is just starting to happen within a year when Charlie's going like, hey, man, I don't actually think this. I don't actually believe this. And then he goes, you know what? Take the money. Take the money out of the organization. And they panicked. They freaked out. And their solution was, no, just kill him. Just kill him. We can't have this.
And I will say this, Charlie having handlers, I think Candace Owens has a handler, and it's very likely her husband. If you start looking into her husband's history, a lot of connections to the UK government, MI6. His father also has a lot of connections. Nick Fuentes brought a lot of this up, which had people originally questioning. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlie had a handler. I wouldn't even be surprised if Erica Kirk was her handler, just like I think Candace Owens' husband is maybe her handler. I mean, my theory from the beginning was most social media influencers that are big are being pushed by three-letter agencies for different reasons or purposes.
But I do hope the retarded right continues to realize that at least betting all on that horse, on the Candace Owens horse, is also making them look even worse. And we have seen them distance themselves, but not enough.
Hey, don't bring me into this. The retarded right.
You are part of the retarded right. You follow a lot of them and you agree with a lot of
You're
what
a
they
neocon
say.
if I'm the retarded right.
I'm not a neocon.
We'll get into that later when we get into Shapiro.
Sure. But with Candace right now, there's either 2 or 3 options. Like, she's either fully in on it, understands it, that this is ridiculous and doesn't actually believe it. 2, she does believe it and has either a personal vendetta or unrequited love from Charlie Kirk, who has now passed away.
That's your theory.
Yeah, that is my theory. And because, I mean, there's signs that point to that. Or the third one is both of them. She's both in on it and knowing, but also using this.
There's other options, and the big other option I brought up way from the beginning before anybody else brought it up was she was working for MI6 in the UK government before Alex Jones, before Fuentes. That's what I had pointed to, and that's what I thought was kind of happening. Thankfully to Fuentes, he actually brought hard evidence to my theory, so...
Kind of hard evidence. Owens. But speaking of Fuentes, he continues to also talk about this.
Yeah, he talks about Candace Owens. I always like his take on Candace Owens because they are going back and forth, but he put it really good here. It's a pretty long clip. We'll watch some of it. Maybe we can fast forward to the end as well.
It says Nick clowns Candace for her increasingly more insane conspiracy theories.
And I like how
Charlie
he's
Kirk
going.
was the future using ancient Sumerian technology. That was also a claim.
And I like how he's growing a beard. He's looking like the young Shapiro who was growing a beard as well.
Well, maybe
Just-
that's because
just not as cringe.
after he met with Clavicular, maybe he got some ideas.
Did you see the latest Candace Owens theory? I saw, and I promise I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but seriously. Today, she's talking about remote viewing, which for those that don't know,
You do that.
her latest theory
Pause it.
is that Charlie...
She also
Okay,
talked about
I go down
the retarded right.
It's not crazy. There is remote viewing programs,
retarded
but to
ways.
bring this into the public eye when she has no real evidence, that's where I think there's a disconnect. There is remote viewing programs in the U.S. military. I go down those rabbit holes all the time by myself.
With the retarded right.
The Monroe Institute did a lot of research and was paid by the government a lot of money to do these remote viewing projects. That being said, I don't think there is a connection with the remote viewing and Charlie Kirk and time traveling. Let me
Kirk
make
is
that
using
clear.
ancient Sumerian technology, you know, Sumer, the ancient Fertile Crescent civilization from the dawn of history. She says that the CIA, through Project Looking Glass, acquired ancient Sumerian technology, which allows them to see the future. And the CIA has been tracking Charlie Kirk since his childhood because they identified him early on as a gifted child. So they have been handling him and grooming him since he was a little boy. And the reason that Charlie Kirk knew that he was going to die is because he saw the future using this ancient technology. That's where we are now. So very early on, we had a lot of leads that had not been fully investigated. There was talk about a donation from Israel. There was talk about a meeting with Bill Ackman. People were speculating about lost security camera footage from behind. You know, there were at least some like somewhat credible leads, some unanswered questions. And then it very quickly moved into targeted energy weapons, trap doors, body doubles, a secret
positive there.
beekeeper society.
I am glad he
The
did
maroon
give.
shirts.
I am glad he did give some credit because there was some credible evidence, and those rabbit holes have been gone down, and I think they've been thoroughly explored. I am excited for the trial, and I do want to see the trial. The one big winner from all this, and I think Tucker and Candace were trying to set a trap for Nick. He declined that trap and really took the opposite position, and they have really normalized him and mainstreamed him more than ever because of the situation.
And then it was the Egyptian planes. Then this guy. Now we're just full on into like clockwork elves, transdimensional beings, demons. It's totally insane. I don't know how anybody's still with that. And I feel very vindicated because I was very early on and very forceful, and I took a lot of flack for it.
Even before Nick started talking about it, before Tim started talking about it, before even, what's her name? From the Alibet Stuckey started talking about it. I was talking about it on your show because you like to talk about her show a lot, and I kept saying this isn't true. She's insane. She's gonna continue to go down this rabbit hole, and she did.
Well, I was watching this clip and I was thinking, Nick's always right. And then I was thinking NAR, and I said, oh, that can fit to Nat as well. So I guess it's Nat's always right, NAR.
She is. No, I don't think I'm always right.
For it. Back in September, I said, this stuff is totally insane. There's no evidence for it. It is probably the most simple explanation and most logical that some hicklib with a tranny boyfriend thinks that Charlie Kirk is a Nazi transphobe, got his grandfather's gun and shot him. Totally plausible. Happens all the time. How many transgender school shootings have happened in the past 3 or 4 years?
Today.
There was Audrey McHale. There was the one in Minneapolis when they shot up that church. And there was that one in Texas. I don't know if that was McHale or if that was a different one. There's at least 3, 4, or 5 in just the past few years.
Okay, you can pause it for a second, and we'll continue with the clip because he's doing actually a wonderful job here. But I will say this. Yeah, after going down all these rabbit holes with Candace, which I did for months and defended her on this show, which I'm kind of embarrassed of now, the fact that there was a trans or a shooter with a trans boyfriend or girlfriend is just as likely as anything Candace put out there. It's actually far more likely than this time traveling thing she's talking about now.
And there's far more evidence for that already. in the public, but also with the both prosecutors and the defendants.
Well, and a lot of the evidence I think isn't going to come out till trial, and I think that's going to vindicate a lot of this.
And that's how the judicial system works.
Well, why did we didn't investigate his transferee boyfriend a lot more and the elements that were connected with her? I think there was a missed opportunity there because we were all going down these rabbit holes with Candace, and there was a lot of time and effort invested into that, including my own time and effort.
And that seems to be where it's coming from. So the idea that some gooner hicklib but dating a tranny decided today's the day that we shut the transphobes' mouths, gets up on some perch accessible to any pedestrian, takes a shot. I mean, to me, that makes a lot more sense than this convoluted, what's even the theory at this point? We're just going from one thing to the next. If one theory doesn't work out, we just make up one that's more ridiculous. If that theory doesn't work out, well, that's also part of the conspiracy. They are trying to trick us. It's much bigger than we thought. The conspiracy just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And now the conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk is about the space-time continuum itself. Like, think about how small it started. The conspiracy started out with, like, someone was stealing money at Turning Point and they didn't want Charlie to find out. Someone was embezzling $1 million, so they killed him. So it was like a Turning Point conspiracy. Then it turned into, well, Israel killed him because he was about to turn against Israel. Then it turned into, well, Israel, France, Egypt, and the United States killed him because he was going to reveal something that would change international affairs. Now, he was an indigo child. He was being groomed from birth by men in black hats.
And I had disconnected from Candace just before she went on this time traveling rant and said he was groomed from birth, that being Charlie Kirk, for this entire situation. I am so glad I admitted I was wrong when I did, because I kept
trying to tell you,
God.
I kept trying to get you to say you were wrong.
I cannot believe where she went after. I thought it was too, I thought she had gone down too many rabbit holes where there was nothing there, but man, she is desperately trying to connect something to interdimensional time travelers or whatever the hell the conspiracy is now.
Extraterrestrial beings, because he was going to break the space-time continuum. Reality broke. The Mandela effect happened. One universe combined with another in the multiverse when Charlie, and it's like, at what point do you get off?
Okay, we can kind of stop it there. That was a pretty long clip.
But also remembering, like, at the end of all of this and the conspiracy theories and the calling Candace dumb and the retarded right as a whole, etc., there is still the death of Charlie Kirk. What does that mean for the midterms? What does that mean for 2028, for America First, for where the country is headed, for where other countries are headed, and the tragedy of the assassination of Charlie Kirk that has been completely forgotten almost, and the suffering of his children and of his widow and blah, 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 his friends.
Okay. I don't have the best opinion of even though I went down these rabbit holes and I admitted I was wrong, I still think there was something suspicious, and I don't like a lot of the people that were surrounding Charlie Kirk. That being said, I was wrong, and I'll kind of leave it there. We will get into the midterms and things when we get into the Ben Shapiro story, because I think there's a lot of elements going into that. That being said, I did start watching Candace today. I find it hard to watch a full episode of Candace. I probably watched 45 minutes. She had Myron Gaines on it. They were touching on some TPUSA things, but I think she got incredibly mocked for this interdimensional time traveling rabbit hole she was starting to go down, and she wanted to kind of bring it back down to reality with Myron Gaines, and she's slowly trying to backtrack, and I think she's going to want to redirect her show to something else. She's not going to be able to completely do it right away, but I think over the next couple months you'll definitely see. But then the trial is going to come up, and a lot of people are going to be looking at Candace to dig into this, and I think by the time the trial comes around, she's really going to want to find something else to talk about.
She has to distance herself, and she's not.
But she can't, because the trial.
I know, she can't.
And she's the maiden figurehead for
She
this.
still hasn't shown the Egyptian planes. She still hasn't shown whatever happened to those guys in the maroon shirts. Then the Forwachuca story took a completely who knows which way turn. So every single theory, I think, with the trial, I think it's best for her not to get into it during the trial, because it will look even worse for her. If it looks this bad right now, imagine once the actual evidence and how much evidence they might have piled up comes up, and everything she's ever said just crumbles.
Yeah, because she didn't uncover a movie that was being filmed on Fort Huachuca for Erica Kirk. And she started going into the script. And I think maybe she read the whole script or something, because after that, she just started going in this time traveling thing, but actually trying to think that was reality. I think she got confused on the script and what was reality, because she just went off the deep end at a certain point. That being said, there was another clip I didn't put in here of Fuentes and Candace Owens going back and forth with their tweets, and Fuentes is like, "I'm still waiting for the flight log and the revisions you said you were going to put out." She's not delivering on some of the things she said she would. She's wanting to move past that.
She's either taking something she shouldn't be taking, or she's not taking whatever meds she should be taking. So one of those two. That's the only explanation, in my opinion.
Okay, let's get into
the retarded right. And some proof that they've gotten now. From James Lee. I used to like James Lee, and I think he's steered too much towards the insane side.
Okay, I still like James Lee, and I think this wasn't actually James Lee's investigation. This was another YouTuber James Lee just picked up on and kind of retold the story, which I like, because that's how I got to see it. And I've thought this for years. A lot of people have talked about this for years, about how is the Daily Wire signal boosting themselves without getting banned from YouTube.
But this also isn't news for anybody that remembers or was in this whole ecosphere of influencers and political commentators online. Let's remember Steven Crowder, when he was fighting with the Daily Wire, he already said all of this. This already all came out, and Candace was defending them.
Yeah, but it's going in depth exactly how the ecosphere works and how do you get views when you pay for them? How do you pay for them without actually getting banned off of YouTube? And it's a very specific way. He'll get into it here.
Okay, James Lee says, we have proof the Daily Wire has been astroturfing views on YouTube. Essentially, most of the views are coming from paid pre-roll and mid-roll ads, allegedly, that count as views, but you can't like the video, which throws off the view-to-like ratio. Apparently, game over, Ben.
We've known everything about the Daily Wire is fake, but now we know for sure just how fake.
Okay, this is Ben Shapiro's YouTube channel, and you can clearly see which videos they're buying views for and which ones they're not. This one supposedly has 373,000 views, almost 374,000 views, but it has only 2,600 likes. A huge red flag that a lot of these views, if not most of these views, are not organic. And it's even more egregious with some of the other Daily Wire personalities who don't have the cachet and the history of Ben Shapiro. For example, truth seeker Isabel Brown. It looks like she has hundreds of thousands of views on each of her videos, but if you click on it, it has like 275 likes, under 300 likes for this video that got 219,000 views, supposedly, only 78 comments. So
I like
Isabel. But it's not whether I like him or not. It's extremely apparent with Isabel Brown when you're looking at her comment and like ratio that they're buying views and trying to boost her signal. With Ben Shapiro, it's less obvious, but the implication is definitely still there. But the next part of this is really where they uncover how the Daily Wire is doing this in a completely legal manner.
I think most big YouTube media companies do that, but okay.
So how are they actually doing this? Shout out to this creator, Echoes from Above, for finding this. They say, quote, I asked them about this before the controversy and was told that they post videos as ads on YouTube. Each ad played counts as a view, but because you can't leave a comment or like an ad, it throws off the ratio. Yeah, most of the views on the Daily Wire channels are coming from pre-roll or mid-roll ads that they purchased through the YouTube ad program. Allegedly. Build video engagement and grow your channel.
So you scroll down, it's this super long page about why it can help you and how to do it. And look at this, why YouTube ads, 87% and 3x and blah, blah, blah. So let's say I wanted to actually buy a YouTube ad. I would click on for video creators. If I click video creators, then I would click promote a video. This is very likely what the Daily Wire is doing. This is probably what the Daily Wire is doing. They are specifically buying Google ads for each individual video. If I spend $3,000, if I'm the Daily Wire and I spend $3,000, the low end is 97,000 views, the high end is 320. If I spend $3,000, I am guaranteed to get 100,000 views on my video. Again, not organic, but that's kind of where we're at.
So why am I talking about this, right? You might ask, who cares about the Daily Wire? Well, the Daily Wire, I would say, represents the battle between truth and propaganda. And it's becoming very apparent that the truth is winning. But the propaganda outlets like the Daily Wire, they still have a lot of money and a lot of power. But what today's story is showing is that it's becoming much harder.
You can leave it there. And we definitely have different opinions on the Daily Wire. I like Michael Knowles and I like
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. That being said, I definitely feel like the neocon modern thread is coming through the Daily Wire. And even if you listen to Michael Knowles, especially Ben Shapiro, you see the rebranding of the neocon movement. And it's getting a lot more intelligent how they're trying to sell this thing. So, yeah.
I mean, maybe we should buy ads if it gets you that many views.
Well,
We don't have the money to do so, though.
I'm not going to buy ads, but what I will say, if he spends $3,000, he's probably going to get back. Well, you're not actually going to spend $3,000 because you're going to get maybe you're maybe going to get $1,000 back from the actual watch time from that. So it's costing.
But I
about
mean, it is a
$2,000.
mechanism, and just by showing us there, it's a mechanism that any creator can use, and I'm sure they do.
Tons,
The ones that can.
Tons of channels definitely do. We definitely don't. Just by the growth of our channel. I mean, we do live in Mexico City now, and it's very hard to get our content out to an American and Canadian audience. We do have a Spanish show, and that channel does a lot better, but
Kind of abandoned it because I am having to edit videos for that one. But yeah, that one got a lot faster. And I think it is because even though you tell YouTube you're in English and that your videos are all in English and you're covering stuff about the US and Canada and the UK, for example, English-speaking countries, it's still the first push goes out to a Mexican audience. And of course, if it's in English and nobody cares about the news that we're giving, well, we're going to get a lot less traction.
What I will say is we have a few more clips of Ben Shapiro. He was on the Gavin Newsom show, but since we've gone from MAGA to America First, there's been a lot of distrust put on Ben Shapiro, and a lot of people don't like him, me being one of them. I think he has a lot more loyalty to other countries than he does America itself. I also think he's a neocon in the very traditional sense of that, and I think it comes out, especially when people get into debates with him about war or about country of loyalty. Those are two issues I think Shapiro needs to stay away from, but people know those are his Achilles heels, so they always want to kind of bring it up.
But yeah, he was on the Gavin Newsom podcast show thing he's been trying to do. The Daily Wire says Gavin Newsom refuses to tell Ben Shapiro if he thinks boys can become girls. Shapiro says a fundamental question is a question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Well, and before we get into the clip, maybe we'll talk about this for a minute. I watched this entire thing between yesterday and today, and Gavin Newsom surprisingly ran circles around Shapiro. I actually watched this. I do not like Gavin Newsom. I understand the clips that they're trying to put out there, and what they're trying to say is Ben Shapiro won this. I highly recommend to watch the entire episode. I was very surprised. I do not like Gavin Newsom in any way, shape, or form. I used to live in California. I have a disdain for Gavin Newsom and where he's not only brought the state, but where he now wants to try to bring the country. But he does have that silver tongue, and he can make lies look like truth. I wanted to watch this episode because Ben Shapiro, even though he's lost a lot of cachet in recent years, he did have that debate bro thing about him. And I thought he was going to bring the heat to Gavin Newsom. And I think Gavin Newsom was really like the matador to the bull here.
I didn't watch all of it. I watched parts of it while you were watching it. But I do think, again, Gavin Newsom is right now at least the best option that the Democrats have for 2028. It's still quite early, but the problem with him is because, yes, he comes off great when he's in his own turf and doing his show or giving his speeches, but once you do start breaking down numbers, for example, or statistics or things that have actually happened and debunk the lies, and maybe if J.D. Vance, if he ends up being the nominee and the candidate, if he can do that on stage where Gavin can't weasel himself, because he's very weaselly.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're wrong, and the reason you're wrong, I thought the same thing until I watched the Ben Shapiro
but again,
interview.
it's on his turf.
One moment, no, it's not about it being on his turf. Ben Shapiro brought up statistic. Gavin Newsom brought up the counter statistics and was able to prove his statistics out more than Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro would then try to pivot. I mean, I was shocked.
That's the thing. You have to keep hammering and hammering. That's how you deal with liars.
And the other thing is, I was watching the Daily Wire crowd kind of talk about this, and they did make a good point, and I thought it was right on the money. He's the only Democratic candidate that can sit down on a Joe Rogan or any kind of long format podcast or interview and just go tit for tat. And he's able to do that. Not an AOC, not a Bernie Sanders. We've seen Bernie Sanders sit down on Joe Rogan, and those clips have become infamous. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's play the clip
actually
now.
see it.
But this idea that Trump says people are going to public schools and coming back, having surgeries and coming back the next day is absurd.
No, but there are certainly cases in which kids are being quote unquote socially transitioned at school without parents knowing about it. I know some of the parents to whom this has happened. I mean, this is the fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think I'm for the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for listen, anybody who's suffering with any sort of.
I mean, I think it's been the case for
terrible,
generations, for time immemorial. God bless. But this idea that Trump says,
He didn't say anything.
Well, and I will say this. I've been watching this Gavin Newsom podcast since the beginning. Anytime he has a conservative on, which is here or there, it kind of makes headlines. So I'll watch it. And man, this is really preparing him for the national stage. He's going to be able to debate. He's able to take on conservatives, and he knows what questions they're going to kind of ask. So he knows the rebuttals. He knows if there's holes and questions these conservatives are asking that he needs to go back and actually do things on the ground. He'll be able to point out on the national stage. Gavin Newsom and JD Vance is going to, I think, really be a lot tougher for Vance than a lot of people are thinking here. I'm surprised how much Gavin Newsom has evolved from that first podcast, because it used to be a back and forth kind of two rams hitting heads. It's not that anymore. He's somewhat charismatic when it's coming to these things. And yeah.
But with him, again, I think if you just keep hammering, like you should deal with narcissistic liars is the option that they could use to defeat him. Because then eventually you back him into a corner where he can't say anything.
That's not...
And the actual facts, the fires in the Palisades, the fact that California is a sanctuary state, not just for illegal immigrants, but also for any minor that wants to transition, all of those things can come up, and he can't weasel because he actually voted for
This is the thing. I watched the podcast. You don't. You watch clips from that one podcast and watched it when I was in the room. I've watched every time he's had a conservative on, and he's dramatically improved every time. The problem is he has answers for these questions that a hardcore conservative might not take, but the mainstream America
But he has answers that are lies. That's the thing.
But the thing...
Because you can show his voting record, you can show his proposal record as well within California and what's actually
Ben Shapiro wasn't able to do this on the spot, and he knew he was going in there.
So maybe take this as a learning opportunity.
Well, I'm also going to say this. Oh, God. Now I lost my train of thought there. Why don't you talk for a second?
Let's someone else from the Daily Wire that has been doing the rounds and the debates. Piers Morgan Uncensored, and you also watched this whole thing. I can't say that word, but you're a CUCK and a hack. Cal Kalinske tears into Michael Knowles for supporting Trump's actions in Venezuela. And as most retarded right debaters tend to do, he just devolved into insults instead of actually handling the points properly.
Yeah, and again, I did watch this whole Piers Morgan episode. I did like it because Dave Smith was on there as well. You don't like Dave Smith. I do. I thought Dave Smith and Michael Knowles really went head to head there, and I really like to see those kind of thoughts get flushed out of what America First is. Dave Smith also had a debate with Dinesh D'Souza the other day. That entire debate was about what America First actually is. Kyle Kalinske is an absolute joke here. He looks like a used car salesman. I mean, man, he looks like, I don't know. Let's just watch the clip here.
By the way, he bombed fishing boats from Venezuela, Trinidad, and Tobago, and Colombia. He just did the regime change in Venezuela. He bombed Yemen and Somalia and Nigeria and Iran. He's threatening Greenland and Panama and Canada and Cuba and Mexico. And you sit there the whole time and act like it's okay. Is there anything Trump can do, Michael Knowles, that you would say, I condemn it, and you hop off the Trump train, or are you going to tickle his taint for the rest of your fucking life?
No, I've been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act I thought was a misstep. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the administration has been very successful. What's your problem? What's
my problem is that you're a cuck and you're a hack and you're not an independent thinker and you're meat riding Trump.
Why do you say
and you know that what he's doing in imperialism and you don't care.
I just answered your question. I corrected
Congratulations. You rented your brain to a war criminal pedophile rapist. I hope you're happy.
A war criminal pedophile rapist? Do you brought up a point. You brought up international law, and you made a very false point, a dumb point, which is that international law began only a few hundred years ago. I corrected you, and I pointed out that the international law is part of the Western tradition. Excuse me one second. It goes back to antiquity. It's a principle of the jus gentium. And then you said, well, international law has failed because of the League of Nations failure, which I think is actually undermining your argument and proving my point and proving Trump's point, because the liberal internationalism that was established by people like Woodrow Wilson did, in fact, fail, which is why we need to restore an older and more classical conception of the international order, which is precisely what Trump's doing. So I think you've hoisted yourself with your own petard. And then you just make a lot of vulgar sort of non sequiturs because you don't have a leg to stand on.
Okay, and I will say this, it kind of dinged with me what he looks like. He looks like the meme version of what a conservative is. America flag in the background, bright silver tie, glasses. He looks like a dirty used car salesman. I did want to say something about Gavin Newsom. I remember what I was going to say now. Okay. And the way to beat him, I think, is to get him on stage, know what clips you're going to kind of clip on them and try to get him to take the opposite stance, knowing things have evolved and his stance is going to change and his response is going to change, and then put those two clips side by side. So I think that's going to be the best strategy with
but
Newsom,
on a debate stage,
because I think Newsom is going to do a lot of debates, do a lot of long format interviews. I think he's kind of preparing himself now for that. No, you're not going to get him on stage. This is what I'm saying about Newsom, which you don't understand. What you don't understand is,
you mean the campaign against him?
He's too slick to be caught on stage, but what you're going to be able to get him on is his previous stances, and you're going to be able to clip him on social media. And social media is really how you win campaigns in the modern age. We've seen what Trump did in 2016 and in 2024.
But with I don't watch the debate sphere, and I don't watch all of these debates that go on that you do.
Yeah.
What's his name? The main debater guy?
Oh, Andrew Wilson as
that
well?
One. Andrew Wilson,
Yeah.
and all the debates that are more like online, but that eventually devolve and grow into things like the Piers Morgan Uncensored show or elsewhere, bigger outlets. I do think it is kind of a disservice that a lot of the people, like, for example, Kyle Kulinski, that devolve into that kind of insult and not knowing how to actually properly debate with actual points that are intelligent or historical or having more facts, so you devolve into insults. That is a disservice to, for example, the debate about America First or the debate about what happens with MAGA. And I think the people that can actually debate properly should be given more of a center stage and become the forefront instead of the ones that are just there for entertainment. And
Yeah, it's kind of, I've watched the debate sphere for years.
we watched Anna Kasparian and
I'm watching them all day, so I
Carl
think
Davis.
you kind of get to watch a lot of the debates while you're editing because they're playing in the background. That being said, it's a shame what has happened to the left. When the left was traditional liberals, they actually had intellectual debates and they were actually smart. What they've devolved into since the party has become so ideological is exactly what you see with Kyle Kulinski there, trying to cut off your opponent, trying to overtalk your opponent, not having real points, really kind of name calling. There's a couple of good debaters on the left, but they're few and far between. And some of the best debaters on the left are actually conservatives that are never Trumpers.
But I'm also talking about the retarded right and the pure America First people and the ones that can't support their points if you don't just bow to them.
Name somebody that is like that, because I don't think you can. Dave Smith is one of the great debaters, especially when it comes to war.
Only his fanboys think so.
No.
I'm not a fanboy.
Okay, when Dave Smith wants to talk about morality,
And the ones that always devolve into everything's Israel's fault.
well, when Dave Smith talks
Not
about
that I defend Israel, but I think that's not a good talk, and that's not a good point, especially if you don't know historical facts that a lot of them forget.
Okay, let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, when Dave Smith talks about morality or first principles, he can very easily be picked apart in debates by Andrew Wilson, by other debaters. I've seen it many times. But when it comes to
and Andrew Wilson, I'll include in that.
But when it comes to war and anti-war, he is the best. I mean, historically, he has his facts on point. He just drives circles around these people.
Have you actually checked the facts, or you just think that he's right?
No, I've checked the facts, and a lot of other people have checked the facts as well. Okay.
Speaking of, and that's why I brought him up.
Just to make it clear, Dave Smith is a libertarian. He's not a conservative or a liberal. So, and he does engage in the debate sphere a lot. So I give him a lot of credit there.
Liam McCollum says Dave Smith with an excellent primer on the history of America First movement in his debate. Let's see, because I actually haven't seen
And
this.
1 second, a lot of people might not know Dinesh D'Souza. He's been around for generations. He was there in the Reagan administration. He was one of the traditional neocons, and he's evolved a little bit, but definitely within the neocon ideology.
And he's been an academic as well. And then the other one is Judge Napolitano.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Dinesh, for doing this. I really appreciate it. I've always considered Dinesh to be one of the coolest and most honorable members of Conservatism, Inc., and part of that is demonstrated in the fact that he's here to do this debate, whereas a lot of the other ones talk a lot but won't show up to do it. Then again, I will say being the coolest member of Conservatism, Inc. is a pretty low bar, but I meant it as a compliment.
Again with the insults.
Look, America First means non-interventionism. It means a preference for republicanism, little r, over imperialism, and that's what it's always meant. And it's got a long, rich tradition in American politics. I believe the first noted usage of the term was by the worst president in the 20th century, Woodrow Wilson, but he used it when he was running and campaigning. Now, as many of you younger people know, a whole lot of times presidents campaign on one thing and then do the exact opposite. All you got to do is think about George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So Woodrow Wilson used the term America First when he was promising to keep us out of World War I. That was what he ran on. Of course, he flipped on that and ultimately got us involved. And then the term America First was used by the old right to oppose military adventurism. It was used by figures like Garrett Garrett and Robert Taft. And in fact, I think there was a really big organization that was opposed to U.S. entry into World War II, led by Charles Lindbergh. And what did they call it? The America First Committee, of course. And then, of course, Pat Buchanan, when he was running for president, he used the term America First. And what did it mean? It meant we're against the neoconservatives. We're for a non-interventionist foreign policy. And Donald Trump picked up on the exact same theme. And he said he wanted to break with neoconservatism. He wanted to break with regime change wars. In fact, when Donald Trump was running for re-election, he bragged about no new wars. This was the entire credo. And so to try to pretend, as many of the hawks are now, that America First just means this vague something that's good for America. America First means toppling the Ayatollah on behalf of Israel, or America First means flirting with wars of choice and wars of aggression is nonsense. And that's never what anyone who's been using the term has meant by it. And in fact, all you got to do is go back to 2016 when all of the hawks who now are saying they get to define what Trumpism is, they all objected to America First. There's all types of great quotes that you could find from Ben Shapiro and Bill Kristol and them who said, we don't like that he's saying America First. That's anti-Semitism or something like that. But of course, their beef was always that they knew what the term meant.
He is
the
a
term
Jew.
meant that we're not going to go fight wars to make the military-industrial complex rich. We're not going to fight wars on behalf of Israel that are not in the interest of the United States of America.
Okay,
And that's
you
what
can
Donald
leave it
Trump
there. And that is the 100-year history of paleoconservatism. A lot of people don't know what that is because neoconservatism kind of took way of what conservatism became in the modern context, but it really did rise again, and it rises every 10 or 20 years, and they have this fight within conservatism again. And one faction is anti-war, anti-interventionalist. It's very interesting what's happening under MAGA, and a lot of people that were anti-war, anti-interventionist, America First, when Trump first took office, are now becoming very pro-war, and the neocon ideology is really trying to take a hold of what America First is and saying it's not anti-interventionalists.
Oh, sorry. Interventionist. Not interventionist.
I just always love when you correct me.
You're welcome.
NAR, and that's always right.
Exactly. But again, I will bring up the same point that I would say if Dave Smith was standing right here in front of me. You can't try to make America first and great again if you don't also do something about those that are at least under you and above you, like Canada.
And that's why
the interests.
And that's why I call you a neocon.
How is that neocon? I'm not saying go and do regime change. I'm not saying go and do wars. I'm not saying go and do anything other than, for example, policy making.
You can't make policies
tariffs,
for other countries,
etc. No, I mean like tariffs and restrictions and etc.
And that's America First. And Dave Smith is completely fine with that.
But that is meddling in other people and other countries' things.
And now I'll give you some credit here because you didn't watch the whole debate and you didn't see what Dinesh D'Souza was talking about. And he's a highly in favor of interventionalism.
Interventionism.
Yeah, and so is Ben Shapiro, and so are the rest of the modern neocons.
But I don't think they're as much as they're being painted.
They are.
I don't think so.
They are. They're trying to.
I haven't seen examples.
They're trying to relabel it and saying as long as it's not forever wars, which I'm a lot more sympathetic
in this
to that.
first term. What war did Trump get into?
Nobody's saying what they're saying is the neocons are getting their hooks into them and getting them to make these strikes after strikes after strikes.
So they have their panties in a bunch because they think war might happen, and then it never does.
We're trying to push back against that element, which is the Ben Shapiro's and Dinesh D'Souza's.
But the strategy that Trump's applying right now, and it's all in the damn document of the national security strategy that they released in November, and he's just applying it. If people go read it, then they'll understand what actually the plan is, and the justifications and the motivations to do certain things and none of it.
You sound like a neocon.
And in none of it does it say we want to actually go to war, boots on the ground.
Okay, and let me also put up the big fact. Although I've defended what happened in Venezuela because it was in and out and there wasn't a regime change, it did set the precedent for if a Democratic president gets into office, I have a feeling they might try to go in Russia and do the same thing to Putin. And Russia's not going to take it so easy as Venezuela did. They're not going to take it lying down, and that could lead to nuclear war, something that I think a Democratic president wouldn't be as opposed to or fearful of as kind of Donald Trump
But then
has
what I
been.
would ask Dave Smith and all of them, the ones that are, oh, we're going to war, we shouldn't go to war, non-interventionism, blah, 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 is okay.
It's America first.
Yes, America just cares about America, does its America thing, and doesn't care about anything else. But then what then
No, you have
happens, as it has been happening,
You can have
where other nations come and influence both young minds, older minds, institutions, everything. From all the way from TikTok to the Middle East and Qatar getting into universities and actually fomenting protests.
What they're saying is you can use tariffs, you can use other means, but you don't put boots on the ground. You don't go into
But
these.
they haven't done that.
And you don't go into regime change. What's happening?
They haven't done that.
What was our breaking news for today, Natalia? Nat.
I don't know.
What was the first story that we did?
That they're moving troops to Iran.
They're moving troops and surrounding Iran.
They were surrounded Venezuela,
Yeah,
and there
so
was no
that's-
war.
and for the
so
last-
there's proof that when they actually move troops, it's just to scare.
For the last 2 weeks, they've been trying to foment a regime change in Iran. And now they're sending massive amounts of troops around the country.
And I also think that the whole Iran thing is being played out as a way bigger thing on social media than it actually is on the ground.
That sounds like a far-off war. That sounds like Iraq 1, Iraq 2, and Afghanistan to me. And I don't want to see it
have they
happen.
actually gone in? Or are people just imagining, like Candace Owens, that something might happen, so we got to start panicking right now?
You sound like a neocon trying to
don't sound like
justify
a
the next
neocon.
war. Sell
I'm
it to
saying
the
I
audience.
don't want that. I'm saying I don't want the war, but I think people are panicking way too preemptively and having precedent from what happened in Iran before and what happened with Venezuela, where nothing actually fully happened.
I
There
think
were no boots
America-
on the ground.
I
There were
think
20 boots on the ground, and then they left.
I think America first means maybe worry about America and don't send all your troops over to Iran. Now, Venezuela is the
not
least.
all their
Venezuela was at least within the hemisphere, and a collapsed country within your hemisphere could have impact.
That stole oil from the U.S.
Yeah, it could have. So I'm much more sympathetic to that than I am going into war in Iran, like they did in Iraq 1, Iraq 2, and Afghanistan, and Syria.
And again,
and we can
I
go on and on.
disagree with them going to war. I just don't think they are, and people are panicking and getting their panties in a bunch and having to hold their little pearl necklaces to say, we don't want war, non-interventionism.
Okay,
when it's not actually happening.
I'll call you neocon Nat from now on.
How is this neocon? I'm saying don't go to war, but also don't panic about, what's happening.
Okay, let's continue to go here. I'm sure the audience just loves to watch this fight, but
To have the other side of the coin from the Daily Wire, this Michael Knowles humbles podcasters who think they get to define America first.
well, and this was the entire panel here, so this is a better representation of the show than the other clip, I think.
Michael Knowles, I guess the argument against what Trump is doing is that many people who voted for Trump bought into the concept that what America first was take care of what's happening in your own backyard and stop meddling in foreign affairs. And now they're waking up almost on a daily basis to seeing Donald Trump proudly and aggressively talking about meddling in all sorts of foreign affairs. Is there a contradiction
Neocon
or
Nat.
hypocrisy or even a betrayal of voters going on here?
Not at all. First of all, Venezuela is in our own backyard, and it's been the policy of the United States in 1803 to manage the Western Hemisphere. So that that's a cornerstone of American foreign policy. I think it is charming that Dave is defining America first in the way that he prefers, and I think there are plenty of people who wish to do that. But Dave, though a very popular podcaster, never won a presidential election, and Trump has been clear on what he means by America first, the political movement that he built, that people voted for in his coalition since the beginning. President Trump campaigned the first time around on destroying ISIS. So obviously that does not mean that America's only going to look inward. President Trump has carried out attacks, military operations that were extremely successful in Iran, in Syria, in Afghanistan, obviously in Venezuela. He's been talking about taking Greenland and even invading America's evil top hat, Canada, though I think he's mostly joking about that one, since the beginning. And so that's what that means. And what it comes down to is that America is a global empire. We just are. People can be upset about that, but unless your geopolitics comes strictly from Reddit, if your geopolitics actually comes from history, you recognize that we've been an empire since the Louisiana Purchase, okay? And we've been a muscular global empire since the Second World War. So President Trump's vision, I think, actually rejects two extremes. It rejects a conservative isolationism, and it rejects a liberal internationalism, and it posits a conservative imperialism that says that we are going to recognize our role in the world, but we are going to pursue that role in limited ways with America's interest at heart.
And although I disagree with the view, Michael Knowles does put the new neocon view in words very, very well, and he packages it a lot better than Shapiro or even a Dinesh D'Souza. So I think it is important for people to hear what the new neocon strategy is and what they think. They're moving away from forever wars, and they're wanting quick regime change, in and out strikes, things like this. I think that's actually more palatable to the American public, even though I disagree with it. That is the argument, and that is the argument that you seem to be buying up.
It's not, though. I'm saying don't actually go do it, but at the same time, don't say it's war when it's not. Venezuela was not a war.
It's fun.
And both the insane liberals and lefties and also the retarded right all are saying, oh, it was war in Venezuela. No, it wasn't. It was 4 hours.
It's absolutely fine to agree with the neocons if you want. What I'm saying
And then surrounding
is,
it via international waters.
I agree much more with Dave Smith. I'm not quite as far as Dave Smith because I can make exceptions to the rule when it comes to things like Venezuela. So I say I'm a little bit more compromised, but I'm way, way far away from the level of interventionism.
Interventionism.
I just love to piss you off. Okay, let's keep
To
going.
annoy me. Let's not say bad words. From Taya, it says, quote, if older white, and this is a clip from a while ago, but prescient to the moment.
And Fabio was big in my time. I just found this hilarious. And I do remember when he got hit in the face with the pigeon when he was at Six Flags Magic Mountain. That being said, you said he was big in your time too. So I guess he's multi-generational.
Well, not big, but like I knew who it was.
We used to make fun of him in my generation a lot.
If older white liberal women won't listen to quote-unquote racists warning about how bad the migration situation is in Europe, maybe they'll listen to a man they once admired and wanted to do things to.
A friend of mine is a federal judge in Italy, and he just retired because he told me, Fabio, I cannot believe where our country is today. And I said, why? What's happening? He goes like, number one, Italian citizen, they are fifth-class citizens, not even second class. They're fifth-class citizen.
Meaning?
Meaning then everything, the government supply everything to the immigrant. Everything's for free for the immigrant. The pension plan is pretty much gone. You know, you have old people, 89 years old, they go and collect their pension plan. The government says, go home because we have no money. But in the meantime, they give free phone, free everything, free
this is a similar complaint we hear in America.
But but this has been going for many, many, many years in Europe. And they're to the point where, like, my friend who's a federal judge in Italy said, you know, I can't take this anymore and I'm going to retire. I mean, our police don't want anything to do. In the middle of major city, you will have 40, 50 people from Arab country, from Africa. This is a major, during the day, major square. They get around 40, 50 guys, they get 5 or 6 women, and they rape them right there on the street. The police can be 10, 15 feet away, and the police don't want anything to do, because if they get into confrontation, then, if they beat up these people, they're going to be racist, and so on. And my friend told me, it got to a point where law, do not apply to these people. All the immigrant, they don't. They can do whatever they want. Their jail system is full, so these people, even if they commit crime,
okay,
they get
and we can
arrested,
kind of
they get
leave it
released.
there. And this is the big
That
problem.
was in the Bill Maher podcast.
Yeah, and that is a big problem, the two-tier justice system, especially what's happening in Europe. I mean, it's happening in other countries, but the extremes that's happening in Europe right now is just very, very evident. And it's important that people in Europe especially speak up. But now with the level of censorship in Europe, they're finding they can't speak up because they'll get thrown in jail, or they won't be able to travel within the European Union, which you're supposed to be able to travel. And that was the big benefit. Oh, we're part of the European Union, so you can travel freely between countries. Not anymore. Not if they don't like what you're saying.
I do like that he still does the hair thing. Every so often.
And I used to hate Fabio. I used to make fun of him, but as I get older, he's funny, and I agree with his opinion. So.
That one, at least. Something else we haven't talked about a lot, but I've always admired, I liked him, I supported him, I continue to support him, is Tom MacDonald. And he has been kind of quiet. I don't know if he's released anything or not. I just haven't kept up on it. But apparently now Tom MacDonald says, if you show someone my music videos in the UK, then you're a terrorist.
Yeah, and this is the last story in personality politics before we get into the religion section.
We'll read your comments after this one.
Well, welcome to the UK in 2026, where you can go to prison for posting on the internet, get fined for flying your country's flag, and apparently, as of now, you can get sent to counter-terror programs for showing people my music videos. Cheerio.
In a U.S. politics class, might I say that?
Well, and it's funny because he is what would be considered extremely edgy in today's context, and he's very patriotic. It is what back in the 80s would have been cookie cutter conservative almost.
Basically.
Okay.
And he is good. If you don't know him, go search Tom
Yeah,
McDonald.
I absolutely love Tom McDonald. Yes. Okay.
Let's read your comments because thank you for leaving them. So I asked Non what he was cooking. He said 3 bean pork loin soup. Soup, nice. It's freezing here in Mexico, close to Mexico City. We're having a cold front right now. So yesterday I also decided I didn't make soup. I just boiled water and put it in a soup that was kind of already made, but I just reheated it. But yeah, soup sounds nice. So good luck with the cooking. Non also says, love that little ditty. I've had enough of these people. That's Alex Jones's voice saying, I've had enough of these people. Well, not his voice, but it's based on something he said. The lyrics are. Trent Briggs says, hey, hello, thank you for being here. And also says, Candace is not making much sense lately. I love the qualifier of lately because in my opinion, she hasn't been making sense since she started.
Well, she did make sense when she started to me, and I went down those rabbit holes, and they did have a little bit of facts and they did make sense, but there was nothing there. And man, she's gone off the deep end, and I'm glad I cut my ties when I did.
Yeah. You should have when I told you to, when you were still doing your show on Tuesdays and Thursdays months ago.
NAR, and that's always right.
Trent Briggs also says, I agree. She's trying to bury the Charlie story. Yeah, because she can't keep going like this. And I think she's doing a big disservice to herself, but also to the memory of Charlie. And I think that's what a lot of the followers that did care about Charlie, but also started kind of buying everything Candace was saying, aren't realizing. Or maybe they're starting to realize because I do see her numbers went down, but
she
hopefully more realized.
She wants to bury it rather than admit she was wrong. I admitted I was wrong on the show for a couple episodes. I said when I was wrong, and I wish she would do that, but she's not, and she's going to try to transition. The problem is going to be when the trial comes back up, everybody's going to be looking at her and what her opinion is, and I think she's going to go down more and more rabbit holes trying to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm. For example, I never say, I mean, that's always right is a joke, but I always think I'm not right. I don't think I'm right for most things. When I am, I like to make a big fuss about it. But as I say in my Spanish show, I know less than I know more. And I always say I don't know things and I don't know anything.
I'm glad you're humble on camera, because off camera, you're not that humble.
When I'm right about like washing dishes wrong, then yeah, I will say I'm right.
Yeah, I don't.
She's not allowed to wash dishes,
and I don't mind it, but because I make all the dishes.
Yeah, he uses all the dishes, and then I clean them. But that is because he doesn't. In my opinion, he doesn't know how to clean dishes. But that is a point that always annoys me about the feminists and the women that are always like, oh, men never want to help. Men never do this, never do that. But then when they do try to help, you tell them they're doing it wrong. So they don't want to actually do it, or just admit that you like the way you do it more and stop complaining about, oh, he never does anything, because when he does, you tell him off and tell him how wrong he is. So he, of course, will never want to do things. That's why I wash the dishes, because I know I do it better.
And you still tell me off.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing. So, Walker says, oh, it's in Spanish. So I'll read it in Spanish and not in English. Walker says, a veces pienso que como solo Candace y yo contra el mundo, nah, solo bromeo. He says, sometimes I think that it's just like me and Candace against the world. But no, I'm kidding. I think it's Candace against herself right now. Trent Briggs says they all have handlers. And with that, again, like you have that theory that they all kind of belong to 3-letter agencies maybe, or like are in some way connected to them, which for some of them, it is pretty plausible. For other ones, I don't think so.
The best handlers are either your spouse or your mother, in Nick Shirley's case.
Are you my handler?
Huh?
Are you my handler?
Not yet. We don't, yeah.
And Trent also says, yes, Candace wanted Charlie romantically. Thank you. Yeah.
I never really believe that theory, but that's something
as a woman.
Well, there's 2 hosts, so we can have 2 theories. My theory is all these social media.
But I think it might be both.
Maybe, yeah. My theory is all these social media people are working for 3-letter agencies.
But I mean, one doesn't preclude or erase the other one.
No.
So maybe she's MI6 and she's in love with Charlie.
Yeah, but Charlie and Candace could never really be together because they had to both have handlers.
Yeah, Trent Briggs says Candace's viewership is starting to fall. Exactly. And it's because she went too far.
Well, so was ours. Well, maybe that's because I went too far.
Hold on.
And let us know if you did like our new thumbnail. We tried something new. It took us quite a while to come up with the idea. I really hated our last ones, but they were doing well for a while.
And I guess we have a defender of Candace. Says MUA7 says still she's taking 12th place in the main Spotify podcast chart, much higher than many very popular podcasts. And I think it is because she knows how to capitalize on it and how to weave the story and how to keep viewers engaged. Again, if you believe her even a little bit, it is a very engaging, interesting story, and it always leaves you wanting more, which is what most people
and I watched
don't know how to do fully.
And I watched for a long, long time, way before she went off the rails. Recently, I went down the Macron rabbit hole and everything else, and she did convince me of Macron's husband or alleged husband. That being said, I think she's smart enough to know to transition, and you can see the transition starting to happen. It's not too late. Her numbers are still up, just like they just said in the comments. And I think
No, it said the numbers are going down.
I don't think she's going to completely crash and burn. I think she'll come out okay on this.
But she'll seem very hypocritical and like a liar to people that she has disappointed, like you.
But if she investigates something really well and uncovers something for her next stories, away from this Charlie thing, she could definitely kind of.
But that's what I'm saying. Never during her investigations does she actually do that. She convinces people she's doing it, but she's never really proven anything.
Well, we'll see what happens
all
with
over
Macron.
theories, nothing has been proven.
We'll see what happens with Brigitte.
Trent Briggs says, OMG, Fabio's still alive.
Yeah, I was surprised when I seen that too. Actually, my jaw dropped. That's why I was like, oh, let's put it on here. It's funny.
At least that was from a while ago, so I mean, hopefully he's still alive.
And when I was gathering the stories, that was one of the first stories I gathered. So sometimes I grab it just to make sure I have enough.
And Trent also says he needs a neck lift. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
He can age gracefully.
Yeah.
I'd rather that than, surgeries. And I'm reading the RUMBLE comments, which we still, for some reason, cannot bring up on screen, but we do have some there.
And thanks for everybody that does watch us on RUMBLE. Yes. I appreciate how they really back and protect free speech more than any other platform.
But they do need to work on their
interface.
UI. Yeah. Hello, Neo. Neo says, hello, beautiful people. Hello. Neo also says, Candace is the easiest to identify grandiose narcissist on earth. and again, I don't know if it is that she actually has some kind of mental issue or she actually believes everything, or if she's just trying to play a game and see if it works, but actually doesn't believe it, or is being told by handlers to do this.
Yeah, and once she goes off this TPUSA thing, I'm going to be interested what she goes into next. So I'll give her another chance.
No. I mean, I watch her just to make fun of her and see what she's saying, but there's not a chance. Neo says, at this point, her podcast is just an entertainment show with political rumors to feed the Democratic narratives. Exactly. And that is what I think most people should see her as. Yeah, like, if you just see it as entertainment or even to just laugh at her, then fine. But it's people that take it seriously.
It's a lot of chisme, and that word in
it means gossip.
Yeah, it means gossip. Here in Mexico, it's a very common term. That being said, we have been covering a lot of personality politics, and that's what we usually open up the show. It's a little bit more lighthearted before we get into hardcore geopolitics.
But also because it is important coming into the midterms, especially in the U.S., but also in Canada eventually. We'll maybe cover personality politics there. It is important because right now it is what shapes which way the country is going to go. And we saw it clearly in 2016 and then 2020 and then 2024.
Well, the mainstream media has no more influence, especially going into these midterms and elections. Personality politics and what's happening on social media has a huge impact. And it's very interesting to see the different opinions and who's kind of influencing these people to have some of these opinions.
And Neil also says, Dave Smith is a one debate wonder. Thank you.
Well, do you mean one subject debate? Because I will agree he's very, very good when it comes to war, and other things he's a lot weaker on, but yeah.
Also says he makes me sleepy. Every time he's watching debates, I fall asleep. Except when they start yelling, which in my opinion is not a debate strategy. Well, that's what you do when you're losing, and he does it a lot.
I usually take a 15-minute nap in the afternoon, and there's one podcaster I always play that talks geopolitics that has an extremely boring voice. Yeah. He's very intellectual, and I like what he has to say, but man, it puts me to sleep.
What's his name?
Oh, he's from the Duran. Alex Macoris, I believe his name is.
Mercury's, yeah.
Yeah.
Mercury's, yeah. Yeah, he makes me sleepy too. Both of them, Dave Smith and the director.
I like Dave Smith, and I think he has a different kind of opinion. And it's nice to see him debate against both Democrats and Republicans because he is a libertarian. A lot of Democrats and Republicans only get the arguments from each other a lot of the time. So at least Dave Smith brings something else.
And Neo says Russia is already under such Chinese influence, I agree, that assassination of Putin will only make Russia much closer to China.
Yeah, the thing
he might actually be in the way.
The big problem with Russia is, and if you get rid of Putin, you're not going to like the results. I know Zelensky and a lot of the West want to get rid of Putin. He's the most moderate within that country. I do a lot of research within that country and who's next in line after Putin, and it is the very, very hard right, very pro-war delegation. They actually have a lot of influence over Putin, and they constantly pushing him to go further. And he's the one kind of holding that country back from going a lot further.
But let's move on now to religion. There's only one story and something I kind of wanted to bring up, but let's go.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of.
Yes. Hold on. There we go. From Concerned Citizen. Meanwhile, in Britain, and this is insane, at a protest, Islamists were shouting, I can't say that, Allah, blah, blah, and ending to Jews. An Englishman was arrested with, what was his crime? He said, God bless you, actively persecuting Christians in the country.
Yeah, and this is becoming common in a lot of Western countries outside of the United States, in Canada, in the EU, in the UK.
Can you imagine, this is supposed to be nominally a Christian country where you get arrested for saying, God bless you?
It is absolutely ridiculous, the state that this country has descended into. And it is a woeful act by police that are clearly not doing anything to dispel the public perception that we have two-tier policing and two-tier justice. When you have all manner of members of the radical Islamic community screaming Allahu Akbar, along with Palestinian protesters screaming death to Jews and various other racial slurs and tropes. A man gets arrested for saying, God bless you. What on earth are we coming to in the United Kingdom?
Most definitely. I think it's a shocking story, and it must really bother you as a practicing bishop yourself. I feel that the institutions of this country, the police, the corporate sector, the blob, the bureaucracy, and the political class are now actively anti-Christian.
I completely agree with you. And we've seen it, you know, when you get institutional members of the Church of England and other denominations writing in criticism of the fact that Christians profess their faith at the United Kingdom rally, and then Sky News, BBC doing hit pieces on myself and others because of our defense of the Christian faith. And then this overtly social.
And we'll continue the clip in just a minute. I will say this two-tier policing is really sinking its teeth into all sectors in society, especially in Europe.
Marxist government and the various NGOs connected to them actively persecuting Christians in the United Kingdom. What they fear is...
Okay, and one other thing to say here is how they're getting a lot of these hate speech laws in. First, they're creating protected classes, whether that's Islam as a protected class or other religions as protected classes, and then Christians aren't a protected class in a lot of these countries. The answer is not to make Christians a protected class. That way, you're just going to start arresting more people for more speech. Have equality under the law. You don't need protected classes. If you commit a crime, then you get arrested for that crime. And speech should not be one of those crimes. And the EU is going in the wrong direction right now.
And for all the non-interventionists out there, just to bring back a little bit of the subject from the past section, I do think if you look at England, it is a perfect example of what happens if you are a great empire and decide to just sit on your hands and try not to intervene and just follow all the treaties and accords, and yes, maybe get involved here and there, but not fully directly. And then all the foreign influence that wants to get into your country does, and then they start actually changing government and changing everything.
Are you out of your
around
mind? You're saying non-interventionist would be the opposite of the UK. They went around the globe for years being interventionist.
No, when they were an empire.
Yeah.
And now
they're
because
suffering
they
the
joined the EU,
and now
they did nothing after that
they're not
because
part
they
of
were
the EU.
scared. Because they went into the EU initially.
But they're not part of the EU
No, not anymore, but they're still doing it.
But they're still having to give immigration to all these colonies that they used to colonize. And that's like India, they colonized it.
Yes.
So now all these people have immigration status to go into the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the part of the UK's big problem was their interventionism and going all around the world and changing regimes.
Intervention.
Yeah, this is why I don't want to see the US go down the same path.
But what I'm saying is, and then they sold their power grid to China, and now they're completely controlled by everybody else except themselves because they also broke down their military.
Okay, let's continue.
They essentially have no functioning proper military anymore, or any ways to produce weaponry, for example.
Okay, let's go into the next story.
We talk about this all the
But
time.
I think the UK is a perfect example of why interventionism doesn't work.
No, but that's empire building. That wasn't interventionism. That was empire building back
That's how they did it.
Past centuries.
Through color revolution is how the UK did it, and they're still doing it to this day. A lot that you don't know about. They're trying to do it to Trump. They've been trying to do it to Trump since 2016.
Exactly. So should Trump just sit there passively, sitting on his hands, saying, "No, I'm not interventionist. You can come in." Do whatever you want.
But he did, okay, let's continue.
I don't want to get into more wars, so I'm just going to let everybody come to the country and do whatever they want.
That's not what we're saying. We're saying if what your big thing is oh, they're already doing it to the United States, let's change the immigration policy.
Yes.
And countries that aren't ideologically aligned or people that aren't going to kind of mold to the culture don't allow in.
Yes, but it's not just about bringing
internal
people.
policies rather than trying to attack nations outside.
But it's
of
not
it.
about just changing the policies and not letting people in, because people and from afar they will continue to try to, because the U.S. is the most powerful nation in the world still.
Okay, neocon Nat, do you know what time it is?
But I'm saying
It's time for a health maha and education.
But why are you stopping me in the middle of making a point? Now I forgot what I was going to say. See, this is why the retarded right can't debate, because then they either devolve into insult or they try to distract you to go into something else because they can't win.
I've already won.
No, you didn't.
The audience is on my side.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
I don't even. They haven't said what position they're in.
I
So
guarantee.
what I'm saying is, you can't sit as a dominant power, the dominant power. You can't sit on your hands and say, no, I don't want any intervention ever.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you attack
that's what
first,
the retarded
if you
right-
attack first, you can attack back.
Okay, and what about how do you classify an attack though?
What do
I
you-
would say
If you
getting into institutions and actually changing policies and making policies
Attacking
that
institutions are not an attack on
disadvantage
the
the
soil.
American people, then yes, it is.
What-
or
what-
the British people, like here, where they now it is you can't say whatever you say on one side, but you can't say anything on the other side, and that is because a lot of legislators are actually foreigners and have foreign interests.
Okay, what I'd say is an attack, but not a war, is what they did to Iran. When they did the bombing,
Mm-hmm.
if that same thing happened to the United States and the United States would bomb, that would be a
Yeah,
full-on
but
war.
at least for now, nobody is brave enough to try to do that because they know they can't win it.
Yeah, but if you keep poking the bear and you keep doing these things, eventually you're going to run up against somebody like Russia that may punch back.
And then what?
And then a lot of people don't.
Yeah, so that's why you deter it. That's why you don't let it even happen in the first place.
Okay, neocon, now let's move on.
You don't even know what neocon means.
Yes, I do.
What does it mean?
You want to go around the globe.
No, I don't. When did I say I want to go around
You've
the
been saying
globe?
it all episode.
No, I said you
And you've
can't
been
sit on your
defending
hands and say we can't do anything ever America first.
Yeah.
Because then America first will just crumble.
I disagree with that. I don't think it will crumble. I think it will
It
be
will
even
crumble.
stronger. And the way
You
should,
can't isolate yourself from everything
you're
and
not,
everyone.
nobody said that. I'm saying from wars.
Yeah,
not
and I-
not
and I
from
can't-
tariffs. You can use tariffs. You can use
And
soft
that's what
power.
I said. I said using tariffs, etc. But
And-
a lot of them don't even want to. They don't even want the U.S. or the government to think about outside.
Okay.
Countries,
well,
other
we have an interesting show
But I'm
now
not saying-
because I'm a non-interventionist
But I'm
and
not
you're
saying
a
no,
neocon.
I'm not saying war. I never said war.
That's what you're. That's what
I'm
you're calling
saying
for.
you're calling wars that aren't wars. Venezuela wasn't a war.
Okay, it was an intervention, and it could have turned into a color revolution. And now what?
Yes,
they're,
but it
hold
was
on,
managed
let me
enough where it
finish.
wasn't.
Let me finish. What they're
That wasn't the plan.
What they're currently doing in Iran is what a color revolution. What they're
Are they actually
hold on,
doing it, or
what
is
the-
it from other governments
what,
that are
what
doing
they're
it?
currently doing in Ukraine?
it the
Hold
US?
on, what they're currently doing in Ukraine is what?
I don't know. I don't
It's a
follow
full.
Ukraine.
It's a full-on war, and the United States is the main backer of
The
it.
United States, Trump wants to get out of it.
He's not out of it, is he? So what is that?
No, but he continues
No.
to say, "I want to get out of it."
So what is it?
Are there
It's a full-on
American
war.
troops there?
Yes, they're the ones advising everything. They're
Advising. And
the.
selling
Of course,
weapons.
the neocon is going to justify it in
And
any way,
selling
shape, or
weapons. I'm
form.
not justifying it. I've always, and you know, I've always said that they shouldn't be even
selling weapons.
to
They were
Ukraine.
providing them
I
for.
said they shouldn't even do that.
They were providing them for free for years.
And I'm saying they shouldn't even do that.
Okay, let's get on to health, Maha, and education. I added into this section.
Something else I was going to say was, I did watch a debate today on the culture war from Timcast, from Tim Pool. He wasn't there. It was Alex Stein and then a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim.
It was a boring debate. Don't watch it.
No, don't watch it. It was bad. But I think it did. It shows the devolution of actual debate and actual truth seeking for all sides. They all did bad.
No, because there's all.
In my opinion, they all did bad.
Yeah, in a debate sphere, I would say 75% of debates are bad, and you have the good 25%.
But what I'm saying is
that's just one. That's not even.
What I'm saying is we should move towards the good and away from the bad.
Yeah, but that's not even a bad debate. You just don't watch enough debates to actually know.
I passively do through you, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's the state of things, which is worrying and sad.
It's not worrying because the debate sphere is really coming into its element in the recent couple of years, and I think it's only going to get bigger.
Shouting and yelling is not coming into its element.
And it's starting to really refine itself.
And having no talking points is also
Okay,
not
did
coming into its element.
you watch Dave Smith and Dinesh D'Souza? Because that was an excellent debate.
No, I haven't had time.
Okay.
Let's move on to health, Maha, and education.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
I am more America first than you.
I'm in Mexico. I'm Mexico first.
Okay.
That's my actual policy. Mexico first.
Okay, let's keep going here.
You seem to forget where you live.
She was talking during the little, what would you call that? Stinger.
The stinger.
She was talking shit during the stinger.
Don't say bad words. I was talking stuff.
Oh, no bad words, mother.
Well, no, because people have told us that they don't like bad words.
Okay.
From Josh Hawley, quote, spoiler alert, men cannot get pregnant. More obvious, it could not be. Josh Hawley usually, I mean, I don't know much about him, but every time he's questioning someone, the clips go viral. So at least he has that strategy down pat.
And he's got a nice tie, same color as mine.
Do you think that men can get pregnant?
Oh, and this is from the hearings that are going on right now with the Supreme Court and et cetera, with all the question about men and women's sports and Title IX and what should happen around
This is
that.
supposed to be a doctor, so...
The one that he's questioning. Yes.
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
Can men get pregnant?
many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. That
Can men get pregnant?
again, as I'm saying,
Let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
No, yes, no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. You know, the United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert, and you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
This is
male
extraordinary.
and female with
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
what you were talking about is biological.
You're not going to answer my question. it sounds like.
Biological males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
Again, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. We are here about the safety of women and science that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events in 11% of cases. That's 22 times greater than the FDA label. Another fact you haven't acknowledged. And yet you won't even acknowledge the basic reality that biological men don't get pregnant. There's a difference between biological men and biological women. I don't know how we can take you seriously and your claims to be a person of science if you won't level with this on this basic issue. I thought we were past all of this, frankly. I can't believe we're still here talking about this.
I am a person of science, and I'm also someone here who's here to represent the complex experiences of my patients. And I don't think polarized language or questions serve that goal. I don't think they serve the American people.
It is not polarizing to say that there is a scientific difference between men and women. And I want this to be clear and for the record. It is not polarizing to say that women are a biological reality and should be treated and protected as such. That is not polarizing. That is truth. It is also, by the way, the United States Constitution, which offers unique protections to women in a variety of circumstances as women. And your refusal to recognize women as women and men as men is deeply corrosive to science, to public trust, and yes, to constitutional protections for women as women. And I think it's extraordinary that you would sit here and advance a political agenda that has been thoroughly discredited and rejected by the American people in this forum. And I'm glad we had this exchange because it is exceptionally clarifying. It is also in many ways quite depressing.
Okay, and I'm glad they had that exchange too. I will say I understand that was a long clip and it sounded quite repetitive, but it was important that he kept drilling her down. Yes. And ultimately, she did not want to answer the question, and she looks like a fool when other people go to testify. After that comes out, and I think that clip is going to make the rounds, a lot of other doctors and politicians are going to be a lot less likely to take that stance.
I don't think so. Because, I mean, this just exemplifies this kind of thinking and this kind of rhetoric and ideology is still out there, and it's still being defended by its most ardent defenders and supporters who are still in positions of power, and they're still out there doing things.
It's going to be interesting.
Like we can't think that DEI it is gone and gender ideology is gone. It's not.
No, it's not gone. But if Gavin Newsom is the candidate in 2028 and he goes against JD Vance, I don't think he's going to put that in the forefront. And when you see him question on it, he tries to weasel his way out quite often. He takes a much softer stance. They can't bring it back unless the Democratic candidate actually wins in 2028. So they want to try to hide that fact until after they win, if they can win.
Yeah, but I mean, with Gavin Newsom and being questioned on this, the facts are that, again, California, thanks to him, and partly at least, is a sanctuary state for transgender minors.
Yeah, I agree. But when you try to nail him down on it, he weasels his way out very easily.
Whoever is debating him has to know how to not let him weasel.
Okay.
Stop him.
Well, you're a karate man now.
How to stop him. Well, no, like a barrier. I was thinking of a weasel. Like trying to move past the barrier.
Let's keep going here.
But we actually kind of talked about this, but Derek Evans says Senate passes bill banning taxpayer funding for abortions in an 81-15 vote. H.R. 6938 blocks government funds for abortions with exceptions for medical emergencies and extreme criminal cases.
Yeah, and this will be interesting. We don't have to play the clip because it's just them taking the vote. But Donald Trump is trying to get through healthcare funding going directly to American citizens in medical bank accounts so they can only spend it on either doctors or insurance. That being said, one of the big holdups for that is this exact issue, and that is government money being spent on abortions. Democrats won't negotiate with him on that, even though that would take away trillions in corruption in the United States. They want, if this money goes into accounts, that the people can choose to use it on abortion. This is going to set another barrier for that. So I'm actually in favor of this legislation they passed, but I do understand it's going to hinder and put new hurdles in the way of what Trump wants to do with getting rid of medical corruption.
Where he would have had to compromise, probably, on this specific subject.
Yeah.
So we'll see now how that goes and turns out.
Okay, we can get into the last story in this section, and I think it has to do with education.
Yes, the American education system, which continues to surprise us. From Wall Street Apes, American mother says her daughter is one of only 4 children in her entire math class that speaks English. She doesn't know how to learn math because there's 20 plus other kids who don't know English, and the teacher has to accommodate them. Why am I paying property taxes? Why am I paying income tax? Why am I paying for them?
Her position here is just very common sense, and it's interesting to just kind of hear her position.
I'm about to ask what I'm not supposed to ask. Why is one of my children in a class where she's one of 4 kids that speaks English in math, and she doesn't get to learn math because there's 20 plus other kids who don't know English, and the teacher has to accommodate them? And I'm not blaming the teacher. I actually feel really bad for the teachers. Why? Why am I paying property taxes? Why am I paying income tax? Why am I paying taxes for anything for my children to have the right to a free and public education, which, by the way, they constantly are trying to take the ability for us to homeschool and all that stuff away. to make them go to public school, but then when they go to public school, this is what they get. You don't get to learn math because you know English, so you just don't get to learn math. What? I'm about to ask.
Yeah, and I will say this. She started off the entire thing with, I'm going to talk about the one thing I'm not supposed to talk about. In the EU and the UK, you actually can't talk about that anymore. If you bring that subject up, the police are going to come knock at your door. So the fact that she lives in the United States and she can still talk about that, hopefully they keep protecting free speech.
And I mean, math is a universal language, but you do need another language to learn it as well. And this just continues to show the problems with unfettered migration, like what has been happening to the US for the longest time, but also Canada and elsewhere, a bunch of other countries.
Well,
and the problems with non-assimilation and not, I won't say enforcing, but at least encouraging highly to assimilate, especially for younger kids.
Well, even the migrants that do actually speak English and speak it well, it's hindering them as well. So maybe having separate classes for kids that actually speak the language and then kids that don't, because I don't know how you're going to actually educate these kids if there's multiple groups all speaking different languages.
Well, teach English first, and then you teach them all the rest of the subjects. That's what they used to do in Canada before. Again, I worked in 2 high schools, and what used to happen before, and then they changed it, at least I didn't work in the public sector, in the public education system in Canada, but I knew because I met teachers, because I would talk to other teachers. What they used to do in Canada is that first they would put them through like intensive English courses in public school to the point where they could take the other classes in English. So have that component first. Don't accommodate for the well, not few apparently in this case, but don't accommodate for the few that need accommodations. Make it like continue the class normally, and then figure out what to do with those to get them to the level where they can actually attend the class.
Yeah.
That simple.
Well, but
and homeschool.
There does become an issue there if they immigrate. Let's say they immigrate at the age of 12. It's going to take them 2 or 3 years to learn appropriate English.
They used to take a while.
They're going to fall way behind. So
I have a friend who emigrated around, I don't remember how old she was, but she went to Canada when she was still in high school, and the English wasn't up to the level where she could actually take classes, and she had to take a bunch of classes first just in English, and had her whole day was just English, and that brought her up to speed eventually. I think it was 6 months.
Yeah.
But like they had to kind of hold them back a bit to get them to the point where they could actually learn. Now they don't do that in Canada.
I mean, they're just building a dumber country if they're not willing to actually teach these subjects.
Even dumber country.
Okay.
Sorry for all the Americans out there, but I mean, like the public education system, and I'm sure you must know, in the U.S. is dismal.
Yeah, but homeschooling and private schools in the United States are trying a lot of different models now, and there is a lot of hope there because they are really making the way, and they are cutting edge of education when it comes to these private programs or when it comes to homeschooling more than any other country.
When they let
now,
them, though.
the public system and the teachers union is really what's holding the American education system back right now, and the ideology that's in universities and colleges.
And now in the next remigration section, we do have something about the teachers unions. But first, Nan says that's socialism. I don't know which story he was referring to, but all of it, yes, basically.
A lot of the stories we cover are socialism.
Yeah, and Neo says agree, but again, I don't know to which part, but thank you. But let's move on to remigration, because now I learned how to say it.
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
And not too many things concerning remigration, but again, the Minnesota story and the Minneapolis stuff that's going on, and then the rest in the U.S.
We have 2 stories in this section, so let's get into it.
Yes, 3. Nick Sortor says breaking ICE agents have now deployed to the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport and are verifying the legal status of both customers and employees per Fox 9. ICE and Border Patrol are running a full court press out here in Minnesota.
Yeah, and it's starting to get really violent in Minnesota now. They're starting to attack police cars, take their weapons, get private documents. We're going to cover that in a little bit. I think it's in the U.S. section, if I'm not mistaken. That being said, because it's getting so violent, they should have been better organized from the beginning, meaning every Greyhound bus station and every airport, they really should have stacked agents there to kind of watch the inflow and outflow of ideological extremists, number 1. But number 2, if they want to really fight this immigration problem, Greyhound bus stations and airports are extremely important.
And new tonight, there's word that ICE is planning immigration enforcement at MSP Airport. That's according to an airport employee who told us agents will spend the next 3 weeks there. Fox 9's Mike Manzoni is live at MSP tonight. And Mike, the airport, however, not confirming this to us.
No, but Randy, it does say that federal regulations do give ICE agents and other federal agents broad access to the property here. The airport worker who told us about the plans says that agents plan to check and verify documents for both travelers as well as customers and employees, that kind of thing, and that they also plan on being in the jet bridges. Federal law requires green card holders to carry their card at all times. If you are a U.S. citizen, you do not have to hand over any documentation, but if you want to, any state driver's license or ID is proof of legal status. Enhanced IDs and passports are proof of U.S. citizenship. We spoke with an immigration attorney who says whether you want to show your documents is ultimately up to you.
It may be easier to present your documentation showing that you have lawful status in the United States or showing that you're a citizen to avoid being placed in detention erroneously if you do have lawful status in the country.
Okay, and we can leave it there. I will have a little bit of a different take on this, and that is Trump has been trying to arrest a lot of illegal immigrants and exit them from the country. He hasn't been very successful. I mean, more than a lot of other presidents, but he's really putting it on the news a lot. The majority of migrants that are leaving the country are actually because of the successful program Trump started outside of ICE, and that is you can go to any airport and you can get a ticket anywhere in the world, whether that's your home country or any other country that would take you, plus $1,000 if you remigrate yourself. And that's been a very successful program. Numbers are going between 1.5 and 2 million people have taken the administration up on that situation. That being said, if you start putting ICE agents at airports, it might actually hinder that program. And that program is where the results are actually coming from. So if they're going to start putting ICE agents at airports, they really need to inform illegal migrants that that program is still available if they go to airports.
But to me, it's still incredible that a lot of the people that are lawful U.S. citizens that get, detained, as the lawyer was saying, it's because they refuse to show.
But you don't have to.
I know, but sometimes it is because they have to check and they don't.
Yeah, but you don't have to by U.S. law, and that's in the Constitution.
Yes, but even for the actual ones that maybe do hold status but refuse to show their ID.
Yeah,
like students.
And this is one of the big things. Whether you're for immigration or against immigration, you don't want to strip the freedoms of the citizens in order to get rid of the illegal migrants. And one good example of this would be digital ID. Everybody's talking about digital ID possibly being brought in on the back of we need to get rid of illegal immigrants. That's what they're currently trying to do in the UK. And I've been talking about this in the context of the US. So I really hope they don't press digital ID in the name of getting rid of illegal immigrants. I don't want to see freedom stripped from citizens in order to get rid of illegal immigrants, because what could happen is you might still not get rid of the illegal immigrants and strip the freedoms from your citizens.
Yes, and we have seen during chaos times that they continue to do so with the Patriot Act, etc. But something else that kind of is related to both education and the protests that we are seeing in Minnesota is, and I put this in here because it's directly related. Andy Knows says that in St. Paul, Minnesota, on January 14th, so 2 days ago, students who skipped school to protest in favor of open borders and mass illegal migration were taken to the Capitol building, and then they ended up violently rioting and fighting one another, because of course that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, and this is the last story in the remigration section. Then we'll get into U.S. politics and read comments.
We can't show too much of it, but again, this is what the politicians in Minnesota, Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, are encouraging to do. Ilhan Omar, etc. All the people that keep encouraging, especially the younger kids, to go out and do this and protest and make your voices heard. Well, of course, this is what it's going to end up in.
This really wasn't the big story. The big story about the protests that are going on are they've been coming after cops very violently, bringing crowbars to their cars, getting classified documents so they have the names of ICE agents, of judges, and then they want to retaliate at their homes. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if we have any comments, we can
I'm
go
reading
into
the comments now, and then we're going into the US, which starts with stories about exactly that. Jem Briggs says, in general, the USA is not what it used to be. And again, what has changed? Multiple things, but
yeah, but I'm saying you can still rebuild it. Donald Trump is currently trying to format some kind of identity other than what they're doing in Canada, the UK, and the EU, which is they're losing all identity that they've ever had. And it's really fundamentally, there is no unifying identity for people to buy in when they migrate to the country. And there's mass migration going on.
And then Trent Briggs also says, I don't know why they're so against ICE. But then says, but I agree, don't stop and ID people randomly.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it is a suspect, then they should present.
But
if they have a warrant or an arrest order, then and they say, give me your
yeah,
ID,
when
then
you,
you do.
when you set the precedent now under Donald Trump, that
No, but even when you get stopped
Hold
like
on.
by a police officer.
Let
in
me
your car-
finish. If you set the precedent now under Donald Trump because you agree with him deporting people, which I agree with him deporting people, but if we set the precedent that everybody has to ID, you're going to lose a lot of your fundamental rights. And when Biden gets in there, not Biden, or whoever's
Newsom.
Yeah, if Newsom gets in there, you're not going to want them to have that power.
No, but what I'm saying is if an officer, they stop you in your car at a red light and they say, give me your license and registration, you do have to.
Okay.
And they're even allowed to break your window to go get
Depending on what state.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
maybe go state by state in this case as well.
Whatever the law actually is. And in a car is much different when you're on the ground. When you're on the ground, you don't have to ID, I think in almost every state.
But if you hold any other status, I think you do. Because in Canada, I used to have to do that.
Yeah, but how are they going to know if
And
you
they
hold
never called, Canada's like Germany in the 30s and 40s.
How are you going to know if they have another status when you say, I'm an American citizen, I don't have to ID?
But then...
Because they're being informed of that by NGOs.
Mhm.
That's the issue as well.
But then they're not.
Yeah, it's an issue that we're going to have on the ground. You can't strip Americans of their freedoms not to ID.
No, but for example, again, in Canada, I was a student first and then held PR status. I was asked quite a few times to show.
Police ask citizens to do things.
To show my permanent resident card.
Police ask citizens to do things all the time they actually don't have the right to ask them for.
Okay, so maybe the
they have the right to ask them
Canada
for.
were wrong.
They have the right to ask them for, but most citizens don't know they have the right to say no.
I didn't know. Nobody told me
Yeah,
in Canada. I mean, in Canada might be different. But...
When they pull you over and they want to search your car, you don't have to just let them search your car. Just like when
No, but you do have to comply to a certain extent because then we see what happens when you don't comply.
Okay.
And people get ended because they were not following orders.
Not complying is different than actually knowing what your rights are as far as IDing goes, as far as letting somebody search your car goes and things like this.
Again, my question is, what is the difference between citizens and people that hold other status?
Yeah, there's a big difference. If you're an illegal migrant, you have to ID, but they're being told that they don't.
So how do you fix that?
You can't. That's the issue. You're in a catch-22. That's why Trump isn't having a lot of success on the ground. That's why his voluntary program, where they're self-deporting for $1,000, has been very successful. And that's what he needs to continue to focus on.
Neo says, problem is the U.S. actually hasn't changed a lot. Remember that Iron Mountain facility with retirement paperwork? That was really a symbol of our current state of the U.S. or the current state in the U.S.
Yeah, things are changing. There's currently a lot of change going on in the U.S. with the Federal Reserve, especially. So I'm interested what kind of goes on there. Also, Donald Trump really trying to give an identity. Not that things are a lot different, but the difference is they're trying to flood Western societies with mass immigration so they lose any sense of identity that they did have before.
But now let's actually move on to the U.S., continuing to talk about the U.S. And yes, the main stories are about the protests in Minnesota still. Eric Doherty says, quote, President Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota after federal vehicles were ransacked, weapons and documents were stolen. And most people are saying, just do it. But he hasn't done it.
Oh, and this would be one way to actually solve it. If he declares Insurrection Act, state military ICE officers will have different kinds of privileges. So if they ask the ID in that state under the Insurrection Act, people will have to comply. So this would actually solve it. The fact that it is getting so violent now over the last couple of days, he has the justification for this now, especially what happened with this cop car and the sensitive documents that were taken. A lot of people's personal information, whether it's ICE agents or judges, were in the back of that vehicle, and it's thousands of documents.
Or people that had detention orders as well. But Trump says if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only there doing their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Okay, and this was one of the big incidents that happened, but there was a few like this that have been going on for the last few days now.
Yeah, they were ransacking vehicles, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this video is from Nick Sortor, who then replied to what President Trump said here.
Yeah, they got their whole, that document is their whole battle.
And that's an officer's vehicle that they're ransacking.
Like their battle plan out here, I guess. They got a hold of ICE's entire game plan for Minneapolis. They said in the packet. That's what Status Quo was reading. Okay, so that's what Status Quo might have been reading on their stream then. All right.
Okay, that's good. And did you grab this clip?
No.
Oh, okay. Because there was another clip where all the documents were spread all over the ground and protesters were collecting them. That being said, they're identifying everybody that was involved in that incident.
Yes.
There's expected to be major sentences handed out, especially for the gentleman that had the tattoo on his face that
A Latin Kings gang tattoo.
that took the officer's weapon from his vehicle.
Yes,
So-
and they have identified more people now, and they have started to figure out what to do.
Well, they're going to need to hand out heavy sentences for these particular people because these are people that did get violent, that did take sensitive information and weapons from police. So they need to set the example now in case these protests go to other states and stuff like this. People need to know there are repercussions if you do get violent. It's okay to protest. It's not okay to have this level of violence.
And I think especially for the white Karens or the awfuls that are down on the scene, the affluent white liberal females that are on the scenes, and that maybe this is the first time they do it, or they were encouraged by something they watched on TikTok, or they have been trained but not fully to this extent. I think this might actually be a good deterrent because a lot of them continue to say every time they do get violent or do something, oh, but I'm just a mother, I'm just this, I'm just that. Maybe this could help them think twice, but I do think they're taking a bit too long to actually do anything. And if they are going to invoke the Insurrection Act, do it yesterday.
Well, and I do understand a lot of people like to frame this as white Karens are the protesters on the ground. I just don't think that's the case as much as the media is putting forth.
Yeah, because again, the guy that got detained was the Latin Kings in the Latin Kings.
Yeah, a lot of the people that were involved in this violent incident, they have pictures of a lot of the faces. It was younger men, people with tattoos on their faces, former gang members when they're digging into their past
Or
and stuff like
actual
this.
gang members.
So I don't think it's just white Karens anymore. I think there's a diversity of people.
No, but I'm
kind of
saying
out
to
there.
the white Karens
Yeah.
that kind of started and incentivized this and then got angry after Renee Good and continued to do so. This is the kind of people you're also now associating with.
Yeah.
That's my point. But Nick Sortor not too content with President Trump, and he is the one that actually got a lot of the videos that showed them ransacking the vehicle, and luckily they didn't identify him, but he has been chased out of Minnesota and other cities when the crazy leftists identify him and have tried to hit him multiple times as well. Nick Sortor says, "Dear Mr. President, as a reporter who has been on the front lines of the Minnesota uprising since the moment it started almost 10 days ago, I can confirm Governor Walz did not heed your warning to quell the riots attacking ICE agents today. Once again, state and local authorities refused to respond to calls for help and allowed agents to be assaulted in the streets, traps to be set by rioters to make agents slip and fall outside the building. They are spreading water so it freezes and then agents can slip."
Yeah, it's
And-
extremely cold in Minnesota right now. That's one of the surprising factors that these protests are so big.
Continue to happen.
It usually doesn't happen in cold weather like this.
He says, and allowed roads to be blocked, preventing them from enforcing federal law. It is time to invoke the Insurrection Act. You gave Walz and rioters your legally required notice to disperse. They ignored you. The next step is sending in troops. God bless you and God bless.
Okay, and
people
let's
always.
remember-
And this is from today.
And let's remember a protest that was very peaceful, and that was the truckers' protest in Canada. When they did block roads, they always left one lane open for emergency vehicles, and that was a very well-organized protest. The
They
way
had
that,
bouncy castles.
yeah, so I mean, I'm all for protests, especially when they're peaceful. What these are turning into are something much different, especially when they have these sensitive documents with all these federal officials' names on them now.
And for example, in the truckers' protest, they were saying that they were being violent.
Yeah,
and that is the problem, that the media spin a narrative will say that this isn't violent, but that the, for example, truckers' convoy was.
We're going to get into the truckers' convoy later because there's an update when we get into Canadian geopolitics.
Okay. But let's stay in the U.S. Stand Up for Elon Musk says, I don't think anybody needs him to stand. It's people to stand up for him. Scott Bessent just announced the Internal Revenue Service is launching the IRS massive audits of financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota funds. Banks, what are MSBs? Financial middlemen. Anyone who helped move dirty money about is about to get torched for once the IRS is being deployed for Americans.
And we can play the clip.
Are they sending in the ones that have guns?
Yeah, this is a very good, very good policy. The IRS is very often going after American citizens. I like the fact that they're going after their own institutions and look at the corruption that's going on in there, especially when Joe Biden hired tens of thousands of IRS agents. They're overstaffed. Have them look into corruption in the American government. This is something the American people can actually get behind with the IRS doing. Most people absolutely hate the IRS. This is one way to change the image of what the IRS is, and that is by going after internal corruption.
By actually working?
Civil enforcement is auditing financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota funds, in addition to helping support criminal and civil enforcement efforts. The IRS will also soon announce the formation of a task force as civil enforcement is auditing financial institutions that facilitated.
And that being said, I would be all in favor of actually giving IRS agents major bonuses if they uncover massive corruption within Minnesota, because what you want to do is take this as a framework to bring into other states and other parts of the federal government. Doge was doing a good job, but IRS agents are trained in a much different way where they don't necessarily need to use AI. They're going to use the actual paperwork provided by the government itself, and they know how to look into things in a much different way.
And while it all might seem doom and gloom, like there is some good things that are happening in the U.S. Gas prices going down. I wanted to show the video that the White House put out about the gas prices going down, but it had a copyrighted music
That's
sound.
okay. I have it on. I have something on here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like there are good examples of things that are working, and I think on both sides people are just not wanting to see it. And the media not wanting to fully report on it.
No, it's not that people aren't seeing it. We show it every day on this show. We're going to show it today again on this show.
But
it's not that people aren't seeing it. It just takes time for it to kick in. All the metrics are there for by the time the midterms roll around, the general American public will be seeing this. Donald Trump's been in there a year. He's made the right moves. It's just a matter of time. And I believe over the next year, you're going to start seeing the success at the ground level with the American public.
And the White House says the great healthcare plan. President Trump unveils a great healthcare plan to lower costs and deliver money directly to the American people.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce my plan to lower healthcare prices for all Americans and truly make healthcare affordable again. We're doing things that nobody's ever been able to do. We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care.
And this is what I've been talking about. This is important that they make this transition and then they can refine it over time. But this is going to cut out massive amounts of corruption. We're talking trillions of dollars. The medical industrial complex is one of the most corrupt institutions in the United States. The problem is the negotiation with the Democrats here. I don't know if he's going to be able to pass it. He's talking good here. If he wins in the midterms, he definitely will be able to do this. The thing is, he needs to get this done before the midterms.
Kind of looks like AI, doesn't it? Why is he holding his hand like
No,
that?
he always gives statements from the desk like this.
No, but I'm saying it kind of looks like AI. He's holding his hand weird. I'm getting like Candace now.
Are you going to play
Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is. The big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win. This proposal locks in the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation drug pricing agreement. Now, when you hear about that, for 40 years they've been trying to do it, but they never were able to do it. No other president was able to do it. I got every other country to approve it. by the use of tariffs and other things, they all approved it. Nobody else got it. No other president got it. And for the most part, they didn't even try because they felt it was impossible. It'll bring down drug prices 80, 90%, in some cases, just numbers that nobody's ever heard of before. Your prescription drugs will come way, way down.
Okay,
And
you can stop it there. And that part is important because if you can get it done before the midterms, you're going to see an instant drop in prescription prices. The second half of what he's going to get done, I don't know if he's going to be able to get done unless he wins the midterms. That being said, I like the fact that he's trying new and innovative things and going after the heart of corruption, whether it's the medical industrial complex. I like him to focus on the military industrial complex a little bit more, but I think that's a lot harder to go after because a lot of power and political power is entrenched in the military industrial complex. Okay.
And I do think, I mean, with healthcare, it is a thing where both sides can kind of see the benefit if they want to, if they're willing to get past their TDS, their Trump derangement syndrome, and actually see that it is what they've been begging for the longest time.
Yeah, if this was Newsom doing the same thing, I mean, it would be the Republicans trying to block it. I wish they would just come together on this. There's a lot of political power entrenched in the medical industrial complex as well. We've seen this during the jibby jab era, and not just in the United States, but a lot of countries all around the world, especially countries that have socialized medicine like Canada. Surprisingly, the medical industrial complex has a lot of power in those countries.
And also in other positive news from Peter St. Ong, who I like, or Onge, however you say, the GDP hits 5.5, meaning the American economy is now growing faster than China. Productivity growth tripled, wages are growing 3.8%, layoffs are the lowest since 2022, and inflation is just 1.7 per trueflation.
And on the Wall Street side or the corporate side, everything's in line. It's going to take a year before this trickles down to Main Street and people really start to see it in gas prices and prices on the shelf. But the fact that the United States is now outperforming China, which hasn't happened in years, is huge news.
And
and I know a lot of people on the ground in the United States don't see this yet. I believe in 12 months, they will be seeing the effects of this.
And Peter says here, this is a crash that legacy media and economists swore was coming and that a lot of people were warning about, and now this.
The Atlanta Fed just announced GDP growth is a blistering 5.5%, meaning we are currently growing faster than China. Will Chinese have to teach their kids English? New numbers from the Trump-hating Fed admit we are in a Reagan-level boom, even as legacy media keeps pimping the Trump depression. Such as growth, unemployment's down to 4.4%, wages are up nearly 4% on the year. Even inflation is down below 2% as the economy grows even faster than Congress can spend it. Challenger Gray says layoffs are at the lowest since 2022, so much for the AI job demolition. Services, which make up 80% of American jobs, are actually accelerating. Then the big one, productivity growth. This is the most important number for economists because it's literally how you get rich. It's currently running higher than 90% of the time since Reagan took office. So productivity measures how much you produce for how much you put in, how much capital, how many workers it takes to make how much stuff. It's the gold standard for prosperity since the more famous GDP includes a lot of weird stuff. For example, GDP counts welfare for illegals or Somali daycares. As wealth generating, it counts riots as wealth since you got to rebuild. It counts wars, which is why people think blowing stuff up makes you rich. As Elon famously pointed out, if you fire every auto worker in America and replace them with DMV workers at twice the pay, you raise GDP. Productivity, in contrast, is actual wealth. It's the tightest link to wages since a productive economy has to pay people more or they quit. So productivity captures technology, skills, know-how. It also measures how much regulation is hurting growth, which is probably why governments like GDP better, aside from counting welfare and DMV salaries. Most important, it's productivity that predicts future living standards. Will our kids be richer than we are? There's a big reason why the Biden economy looks so good on paper but was so bad in reality. So over his 4 years, Biden's GDP growth was a healthy 3%. But productivity growth was crawling at just half that as GDP ballooned with trillions of deficit spending that in some states meant nearly all job growth over those 4 years was government funded. Trump has now almost tripled Biden's productivity. And concretely, at Trump's current productivity rate, it takes just 14 years to double wages, as in your kids would make 4 times what you make if it keeps up. So as X brought to you by I Trust Capital.
Okay. And I've actually stopped reporting on the amount of investment that's coming into the United States because there's just so many stories, and the U.S. sections have had a lot of news over the last few months. But there are major investments coming into the United States. We used to report them on a daily basis. The amount of factories and the amount of manufacturing that they're actually breaking ground on is also massive. one of the big things is going to be, does the Supreme Court hold up that tariff policy? And right now, experts say most likely not, whether that's constitutional attorneys or the betting market. I really hope they hold the line on that policy. I think that's going to be the biggest effect come the midterms. But like we talked last time, if they do knock down that policy, they do have a plan B, and that's to either bring a 10 or 20% across the board for tariffs on all countries. And Trump actually has the ability to do that. They're saying he doesn't have the ability to single countries out.
And we also talk, and you mentioned it a lot when we talk about GDP, that GDP might not be in the current world the actual metric that you want to base success or failure on.
Well, yeah, Trump focused a lot on Wall Street, but a lot of his policies are focusing on Main Street as well, bringing oil and gas prices down, doing major drilling, giving out contracts, cutting down regulations, the thing that happened in Venezuela as well. I mean, the add-on effects of how he's trying to focus on Main Street now should be seen just before the midterms, and I think that's strategic. He knew he had to go after Wall Street first, and now he's going after policies that will affect Main Street, and they're going to trickle down. It's just a matter of time. And when I look around, because we do geopolitics here, every other country is falling by the wayside while the United States is starting to begin to rise. First, he had to turn it around.
And it seems like Ohio is maybe trying to turn it around in some ways. From Eric Doherty, quote, "A law was just proposed in Ohio cracking down on the rampant Somali childcare fraud through requiring cameras and inspections, a statewide audit system, and the suspension of taxpayer funds for any place under investigation."
And this is a long clip. We'll only play maybe half of it, but I absolutely love this clip because it's not complaining about the corruption or what's going on with the Somali daycares. What it's doing is offering solutions, and they're offering really good solutions. And these are people that are actually empowered that can make those changes. So I hope to see these actually implemented.
If 124 tips by the public uncovered enough fraud that 12 child care centers were closed and 61 were required to repay taxpayers, it raises one unavoidable question. How much fraud is actually happening that is not being reported? That is why Ohio must shift from a reactive enforcement mechanism to a preventative enforcement mechanism using technology, transparency, and immediate consequences so the system cannot be gamed or exploited in the state of Ohio.
Pause it.
So today my office...
And again, this is a framework they can use in other aspects of the government or private industries. Being proactive instead of reactive. Don't just trust people when you're giving out millions or billions of dollars. Actually have preventative measures for audits, for cameras, things like this.
Office, along with Representative DJ Swearingen, is proposing the following solutions that will provide the most robust, fraud preventative, publicly funded childcare system in the nation. The legislation we are introducing attacks fraud at the root by making attendance reporting verifiable, audit-friendly, and enforceable in real time, and requires the state to shut off the public money the moment fraud is suspected. So here are the key provisions. First, mandatory video accountability at all child care centers that accept publicly funded child care. Every child care center receiving public tax dollars must install and maintain a camera system that will allow visual inspections in real time. Cameras will be required at all entrances and exits of publicly funded child care centers with clear line of sight to the interior and exterior of every entrance and exit. And cameras will be installed in the general child care areas where services are provided. We are excluding private areas such as bathrooms, changing rooms, or administrative offices. The video recordings produced by these cameras must be retained for at least 60 days. Cameras must record each day the centers operate and store video either on site or digitally for at least 60 days.
That's good. And he goes through a bunch of other policies that I think would be extremely effective. And again, you don't have to adhere to these policies if you don't want government money. You can always do this as a private business and not have to meet these standards. But if you're going to take millions of dollars in government money, there should be high standards and there should be ways to cut off that money and to really make arrests and have evidence through audits, through videotape and other measures.
And I'm not a huge fan of cameras just in general, but I think specifically with childcare, I think they are useful. And we just saw a super sad case. I forget where it was, Savage, I think it was maybe in Minnesota, where a daycare worker ended a child's life
Yeah, but you
attention.
also have to remember they're not necessarily looking for abuse here. I
No, I
would be
know.
all for trying to
say
cut
that
down
would-
abuse. They want cameras on the entrances and all exits so they don't bring kids in and then sneak them out a back exit. What they want to do is actually make sure the people that they're saying there are there, and they're going to re-verify that through time-stamped audits where every time a child and parent come in, they have to sign in and out, and that has to match the camera. And it's only on the doors. So if you're worried about these child safeties, somebody could easily stand outside and be seeing the same thing that you're going to be seeing on these cameras. They just want to see who's going in and out and sign in and sign out. And I think that's completely reasonable if you're going to take millions of dollars from the government, especially when there's been billions of dollars in corruption.
Mhm. And we also saw, I mean, the tragedy and drama that it was that one of the most prestigious Ivy League universities, Brown University, the cameras weren't working there, even though they said that they have the most ever and they've spent who knows how much money. They weren't even working there as well. So, and then a crime was committed. But something that's not so positive, at least for the Republicans, from Wall Street Map, their Republican majority backstabbed their voters for the second time tonight. 81 Republicans voted with Democrats to keep funding the National Endowment for Democracy, a left-wing NGO/fund that worked with the Biden administration to censor Americans on the right. Elon's Doge efforts specifically targeted this organization for defunding, and some of the same Republicans who cheered it on for the cameras voted with Democrats to stop it.
So USAID and the National Endowment for Democracy are the two big ways the CIA foments color revolution in these countries. It was well known. I know the left wants to push back on USAID is doing all this charity work around the world. It was fomenting billions of dollars into Ukraine, into different color revolutions. It was well known for a long time. The National Endowment for Democracy does very similar things. So the fact that the Republicans want to keep funding this thing is a complete disappointment, not just on this, but the way classic GOP or neocons have been voting against Trump consistently. I hope in the midterms we put America First candidates in there so Trump can actually stop ruling through executive order and start actually implementing permanent legislation. Okay, you can talk for just a quick second. I'm going to.
Okay, I guess I'll read comments because I think you know a lot more about the next story than I do, so I'll just read your comments for now. Now that we're in the break. Trump Break says Renee Good's father-in-law's reaction was surprising. I don't think I would say it was that surprising, maybe. I mean, they're clearly a man of faith. They continue to say and show pictures of her when she was not in the crazy left, but before she left her upbringing and her family to go live with a lesbian who burned cigarettes on her child, allegedly. But I will say it wasn't that surprising because we've seen this story play out over and over again. These women go to have a traumatic experience or end up going to some college, and then they switch completely to the left, and their families left there thinking, well, but what happened to my child? This is not the person that I knew. And that I think also that's why the mother came out initially to say, well, I can't believe Renee was at a protest doing that. But it's because these women specifically, but some lefty men as well, cut ties with their families once they go towards the socialist revolution fever dream that they're all stuck in.
Well, I found the statement to be extremely surprising. We showed it on the last episode, and I was very sympathetic for him afterwards. I really felt for him. And although I thought I didn't agree with his daughter's actions, I really did feel for him, and he was very honest. And God bless that man, and I hope he does get through these hard times.
And Trent Briggs also says Waltz needs to be kicked out.
Yeah,
I think that's an understatement.
There was a
He
meme.
should be jailed.
There was a meme I was watching the other day. It was a fish eating its own tail, and then Nat said, "What's that?" I said the caption was Tim Waltz trying to keep his job.
Should I finish reading the comments or should we move?
No, let's finish the stories in the U.S. section before we move to Canada. We'll read the comments.
Before we move to Canada. From the AF Post, Palmer Lucky says the U.S. is too heavily reliant on specialty manufactured weapons to counter this. Anduril is designing weapons to be manufactured in an average factory, enabling surge capacity like in World War II.
Yeah, and if you don't know about Anduril or Lucky Palmer, I definitely recommend typing this up on YouTube. He is the new military industrial complex for the technological age. bringing weapons and the cost of weapons way down. This needs to be the future, not just for the United States, but I know I don't like the idea of Europe building a massive military, especially that they want to advance this war in Russia. But if they are going to build those manufacturing facilities, they should definitely consult with this gentleman because they do have a lot of good ideas.
But you just say you don't want them to go to war.
No, I don't, but...
We forgot one of the most important lessons of World War II. Everyone talks about how we made our weapons in automotive factories, in agricultural implement factories. John Deere made a whole bunch of tanks, and so did Caterpillar. But what people forget is that we actually specifically designed weapons so that they could be manufactured by those existing workforces, existing machines, and existing factories. We're talking very tight design requirements that drove the design from the very beginning. People would ask questions like, how thick of steel can we heat treat in this existing automotive plant? And those very specific engineering limitations on the manufacturing side are what drove the designs of our bombers, of our fighters, of our tanks. In other words, we designed weapons so that they could be manufactured by the industrial base that we had, not the one that we wished we had. One of the mistakes we've made is not designing weapons to be made by existing U.S. industry, but instead...
And China and Russia are already doing this, and they learned this decades ago. The fact that the United States is now going to transition to this is much needed. Very often this military weaponry, whether it's tanks, planes, or anything else, are way overpriced. They actually never see the battlefield. There's so many dark money pits that the military industrial complex is involved in. Lucky Palmer, it's a very interesting story, and his drone development technology and all these other modern weaponry he's trying to develop in a very Elon Musk type of way, where he's rethinking how manufacturing is done at its very essence. So I don't like the military industrial complex, whether it's modern or whether it's the corrupt one they currently have. That being said, at least they're moving forward, I guess.
Why is he wearing flip-flops? That's the only thing I noticed.
He's from California.
Ew. But yeah, I mean, to all the non-interventionists, you should have no weapons. You don't need a strong military if you're not going to go intervene anywhere in the world. You don't need to defend yourself, ever.
I might be a non-interventionalist, but I know more about the military-industrial complex. I know more about the military-industrial complex and how they're trying to transform it than you do.
Yeah, probably. Something else they might be trying to transform. Graham Allen says, quote, breaking Disney and the NFL, apparently, allegedly, are about to sign a massive deal. I'm sick of it. The NFL needs to be on channels that the common man has access to.
Both the NFL and Disney have gone woke over the last decades. Yeah. The NFL a little bit less so than Disney. I mean, Disney really drank the Kool-Aid. But it's going to be interesting because I think both of them want to kind of move away from that. And I think Disney thinks if the NFL can kind of rebrand itself, we can rebrand ourselves off of the back of that. That being said, I do not like this deal whatsoever. It should be on free TV for the average American citizen to watch, especially if you want to make this America's sport, which it has always been. The funny thing is, as the NFL moves to these networks that are behind paywalls, the UFC is doing the opposite. Starting this year, they're going to be on free TV now. So...
And then this is all alleged. So, but if it does happen,
and this is another Disney-related story.
Hold on, I lost it though. So keep talking.
Well, it's the Kathleen Kennedy story.
I know, but hold on. No, I was going to talk about the NFL.
Oh, the NFL. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say about, but now I have to find this about the NFL. Especially now that we're going to see what happens in the Super Bowl, how much the audience actually watches, because there's this controversy that I don't think is going to be as big as a lot of people want to try to make it, and maybe it should, where they invited Bad Bunny and where they've continued to have, for example, a lot of musical acts that are very skewed one way, I'll say, and very one kind of music ever since Jay-Z and Tidal were put in charge of the halftime show at the Super Bowl. So this is just another indication that, yes, while the NFL might be wanting to not go as woke or be as woke, they still will be. And they're doing this very on purpose.
I think it's two woke companies trying to rebrand off each other to get back to traditional Americana. I think that's the direction they want to go. I don't know how much ideological capture they're still going to have within their corporate ranks, though.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just talk about the Kathleen Kennedy?
I have it.
Oh, you do?
Yes, from That Park Place. And thank you so much to WDW Pro and That Park Place for having me yesterday on their show and on their panel. It was great to be back.
And it was a little bit last minute, so you didn't put it on our X, I don't think.
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can find the link there. I was there yesterday talking about not this, but That Park Place says, breaking, Kathleen Kennedy, who was in charge of Star Wars and Lucasfilm at Disney, officially leaving Lucasfilm as Dave Filoni and Lynn Brennan take over as Star Wars closing a troubled chapter. And the opinions seem to be maybe yes, maybe not, though. So
yeah, the big rumor is she's going to remain as a consultant. So I think they're getting so much bad publicity for this. Somehow, I don't know if she has dirt on a lot of people that own the company or whatever, but they did not want to get rid of her.
She has a lot of interesting connections, I'll just say.
And now that they are getting rid of her, if she does stay on as a consultant, I think she's going to have outsized influence that they can deny that she has. So we'll have to look what happens going forward.
I mean, the catalog and the release schedule and the things that they're planning to release still does not look good because, again, this is all has been influenced by Kathleen Kennedy for the past too long.
Well, yeah, they need to stop going down the feminist road of every main character needs to adhere to this feminist ideology.
Girl boss, annoying BITCHs.
Okay, let's read the comments and then we'll go into Canada. And I've been watching our episodes back. They're getting long because they're like 3 hours now.
Yeah.
We need to relax on the second half.
I'm relaxed.
But I get
You
kind
need
of
to
intense.
relax.
I get intense.
Rafa, hello Rafa, says, hello, happy Friday. And I will say, if Walker is still watching or anybody else that watches also my Spanish channel, now named Nat and The Guy, there isn't going to be a show today as I announced. I'll announce it later on X probably as well, because I need to edit and because we're reshifting our focus to more edited videos and more investigated videos as well.
Oh, and you do need to post our last video on RUMBLE.
Yes.
And
I'll go watch that last video.
I put my tie on for you there, Rafa. Thanks for the comment, by the
And
way.
Rafa also says, did you already talk about Europe sending nudes troops?
No, we're gonna. We still got
We haven't
Canada.
gotten to
We still got Canada, and then we're gonna get into the EU.
Yeah. And Rafa also says, finally, she must have a lot of dirt on others. Otherwise, I don't get why she was left there doing CRAP for so long. Well, she was very good friends with...
Not just left there, but destroying the company year after year after year. And her having that amount of control is insane.
Well, and this is all alleged, but apparently, allegedly, she is very good friends with, for example, Kamala Harris and a lot of other very lefty Democrat people. She was also... had something to do with Harvey Weinstein. That's all I'll say. But yes, she has connections, and her husband has them too. So I mean, it's no surprise she was there for that long. And besides, she destroyed a whole franchise, several franchises actually. Neo says, problem is the US actually hasn't changed a lot. Oh, I read that one. Neo also says, Nat, are you planning to stream these on X2? Rumble eats up too much memory on my computer. To stream. Stream our lives. We used to.
Oh, we don't stream our lives anymore?
On X? No.
Oh, on X. No.
No, we used to stream them on X, but then nobody watched. So we decided to move away from there. But
and the most important platform, even though it's not the biggest, after YouTube, I really feel is RUMBLE, because if another situation happens like the Jibby Jab era or war breaks out, I need somewhere I can speak absolutely freely. YouTube has been fairly good on censorship over the last couple of years since Trump's got in office. That being said, that could easily change, and I want to have a backup platform that's well developed. We have over 100 subscribers now, so we are monetized on Rumble. Yeah.
But thank you so much, Neo, for that question. And I mean, I can set it up again.
We can try it, but also streaming to resources kind of does eat up a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, but it still works. That was never an issue. The issue was always the prep for X. If you schedule a stream, then you have to start it exactly at that. Like if you say 5:30, it has to be at 5:30. Otherwise, it doesn't let you start. So it was becoming a bit of a hindrance.
Well, she's typically late as well.
Shut up. I'm from Mexico, so I'm allowed to. But yeah, that's why we kind of stopped, because we weren't getting almost any viewership on X, and then because it was annoying. Yes,
continue.
I see you tapping your little.
We're only into Canada.
I see you tapping your little finger. So let's move on to Canada, the hellhole we left. And with Mark Carney, it's becoming even more of a hellhole, especially after comments he made recently when he was meeting China.
Let me set up the Canadian section here because we just got here. I'm the one that kind of gathered the stories today. And Mark Carney went to China, made big deals with Xi Jinping, or maybe not that big of deals, but he's definitely choosing China over the United States for the long-term benefit of Canada, which I think a lot of people are against. But Trudeau wanted to go in that direction too. He just didn't do it so outwardly. That being said, we're going to get into kind of Mark Carney going over to China, talking to Xi Jinping, making this deal, and some of the past history and statements that he's made, because he had previously said China was the biggest security threat to Canada. Obviously, that's not the case now, because after today's deal, he's going to be sharing Canadian intelligence with the Chinese government.
Which they already have been doing. But yes, this just solidifies what we basically all already know. From Juno News, quote, today in Beijing, PM Mark Carney says he is heartened by the leadership of the Chinese dictator, that Canada and Communist China can be strategic partners because that's the way Canada wants to go in, and including on issues of security, and invokes the New World Order, which apparently we are still not over.
Yeah, when he says the New World Order here, I almost think he's trying to signal something to the Chinese Communist Party. It seemed to me that Biden was trying to hand over power to China just as fast as can be, and Trump threw a little bit of a monkey wrench in that. I think Carney's trying to signal to them we're still on track for the New World Order.
We're heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping and the speed with which our relationship has progressed in recent months.
1.25.
It is.
This sets the stage for these important discussions on a wide range of issues where we can be strategic partners, from energy to agriculture, people-to-people ties, to multilateralism, to issues on security. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the New World Order.
Pause it.
We're heartened.
And just replay the end and watch the fat guy that's next to Carney here. When he says New World Order, this guy's from Saskatchewan, a conservative province that would have a problem with globalism or a New World Order. And he just perks up and really looks at him.
Sets us up well for the New World Order. We're heartened.
But I will, not to defend Carney, which I would never do, but he is speaking that slowly for the auto translation to China, to Chinese. So that is why he's speaking so slowly, because it was at 1.25, and then he
Do
was
you have
going,
any excuse for him
No.
giving allegiance to the New World Order?
No, that Canada wants to be as communist and as insane as China. That's what their goal has been ever since the Liberals got in.
Well,
even beforehand, I'd say even Stephen Harper had some policies that were worrying, and that opened the door for Trudeau to come in and fully say, I like how the communist Chinese do it. Let's do it here.
Well, I think the entire globalist idea was put forth by the neoliberal order, but I think China was supposed to be at the center of that thing, and Donald Trump is really throwing a monkey wrench into that. That being said, if Gavin Newsom wins in 2028, Trump will have done most of the heavy lifting for the neoliberals, and we could go back on the wrong track here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is part of the problem you have with the United States.
And that's what you
every
need to
4
keep
years,
China at bay.
Every 4 years, it's like a bipolar child. You don't know what ideology you're going to get in there. And Donald Trump isn't making a lot of allies. Yeah, he has some, and I'm glad to see those allies that are sticking with him. But a lot of people are taking the long-term vision of we want to wait Donald Trump out and bring globalism back. Mm-hmm. That's Canada, the EU, China, Australia.
And that's why you have to keep your enemies at bay, not invite them in through the front door.
Okay, let's continue with Canada because they're all interrelated. Carney is basically selling the country out to China outwardly now. Outwardly. Yes. And he's rejecting the United States.
Mario Zelaya says, and he's great if you want Canadian news or Canadian analysis as well. Mario for the North is really good.
Quite a lot to read, so why don't we go right into the clip here?
Okay, but I would just say Carney's China hypocrisy.
And this was an older clip?
But I mean, I think it's a quick clip, so I think the reading is actually important.
Okay.
So he called Canada's top security threat, and then he met Xi for deeper trade ties. His MP asks public to turn in Conservative candidate Joy Joe Trey, for a Chinese bounty, calls it a teachable moment. Asked why China boosted him during the election, denies ties, says he doesn't know. Praised China's incredible climate leadership. It is the world's #1 CO2 emitter with massive coal use. Took $250 million plus loan from China's central bank and profited from coal ports shipping to China while preaching net zero.
Yeah, he has had deep ties with China for a long, long time. And now this is the opportunity he's taking to outwardly align Canada with China, because I think a lot of the Canadian public before this moment, Carney thought they wouldn't be ready. The fact that there's so much Trump derangement syndrome in Canada, I think he's going to try to sell it to the Canadian public.
Stayed silent on Uyghurs, Hong Kong, and the election interference to protect trade relations, condemns some authoritarians, but seeks stable partnership with Xi
Okay, let's play the clip.
And slams the U.S. tariffs, but tolerates China's 100% canola and 25% meat tariffs to keep Beijing happy.
Mr. Carney?
Well, we're in a security section. I think we didn't have a chance to talk about anything internationally. I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China.
He almost said to China is Canada.
The biggest security threat to Canada is China. That was just a few months ago. And the fact that he's going over to China now and cutting this massive deal where he rejects Canada's largest trading partner, which is the United States, it's baffling. The Canadian economy is going to be disassembled in real time here.
It already kind of
And this is I'm gonna get more into this deal later, but this is a bad deal for Canada on every level. It's not like they're getting cheap Chinese EVs. No, they're only gonna get a certain amount of Chinese EVs, and
which explode.
And they're not gonna be the cheap ones. At least if they were the cheap ones, the Canadian public would be getting cheap vehicles. That's not what
that explode.
Well,
I hate Chinese EVs.
Okay, let's keep going.
I made a whole video about it. It's on this channel too. Mark Carney here saying, I just landed in Berlin. The relationship between Canada and China has created opportunities and prosperity for both sides of the Pacific. We're ready to build a new partnership, one that builds on the best of our past and responds to the challenges of today.
Yeah, and I gather these stories.
Do you want to watch
I should have maybe gotten this one out because he did give that statement about the new world order. That being said, let's just watch it at this point.
Is there music?
Yeah.
He's just getting off.
And one of the big points I would put out to that is Xi Jinping was not there. If this was Donald Trump, Xi Jinping would be there. He doesn't even respect Carney at this point. He expects them to fall in line like a vassal state. And that's exactly what Carney is doing with a shitty trade deal with somebody that's not or maybe they are fairly ideologically aligned, because Canada wants to bring in mass censorship. And I think part of this has to do with Carney knows an election's going to be called in the first half of this year, and I think the Chinese Communist Party is going to fund a lot of that election on Carney's behalf.
As they have before. From Brian Lilly, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, a ridiculous man, said he wasn't consulted at all by Prime Minister Mark Carney before the Prime Minister announced he would drop tariffs on Chinese EVs.
Absolutely not. Didn't have any consultation, didn't consult with the automakers. This is going to be terrible for not only just all the people of Ontario, but especially the auto manufacturers, the supply chain. We're letting China into a market that's going to have lower tariffs than our largest market, the U.S. And I don't think that's going to go over too well with President Trump, but it's going to hurt every single auto manufacturer, every single supply chain that has anything to do with the auto sector. This was not thought out properly. It wasn't consulted. It was a knee-jerk reaction as far as I'm concerned. And this is going to be a big, big problem.
Okay, you can leave it there. And they've already lost their auto manufacturing to the United States, but at least if they would have cut even a bad trade deal with the United States, they would have been able to send a lot of their mining, their minerals, their steel, and they would have been part of the manufacturing process on the front end. With this Chinese deal, they don't get any of that. The Chinese Communist Party is going to manufacture their own steel from beginning to end. So there's no add-on benefit to the Canadians, especially because they're not going to allow the cheapest Chinese vehicles into the country. They're actually going to be competitively priced. So what's the point of having cheap Chinese vehicles when they're not even going to be cheap?
And when they explode. Again, go watch that video. It's on this channel.
One more thing I will quickly mention, and that was Trump's response to this. I didn't grab it, but he said, well, Carney did what he had to. He should be cutting deals with the Chinese. And it's interesting when Trump has a response like that, because you know something's coming. And Davos is coming up. Carney will be there. I think they're going to have a talk there, and I think he's going to set him straight. Trump loves the fact that now Carney outwardly kind of connected with the Chinese and made this trade deal, because now it's going to be easy to go after Canada and really support the Alberta separatist movement, which I've been in support of since the beginning.
And with Donald Trump, he also recently said that he thought the USMCA was it doesn't work. They should get out of it. And here in Mexico, everybody was panicking and saying, oh my God, he wants to get out of it. There were articles and thought pieces written about it. He was meaning Canada mostly. He does want to do a bilateral trade deal with Mexico because it benefits the U.S., especially if he can hold it over Claudia Sheinbaum and say, do something about the crime, because otherwise, bye-bye.
Well, he was able.
So he's not going to leave Mexico out of it. It's Canada. With now the excuse of the also joint thing with China, it gives him an even more better excuse to say goodbye, Canada.
He was able to play Canada off of Mexico to try to get the best trade deal for the United States, with Canada doing this with China, saying they're their preferred trade ally. This is going to benefit Mexico immensely, especially since Claudia Sheinbaum is trying to do everything since the beginning to cooperate with Donald Trump, even though she doesn't want to do it because ideologically she is far left, but she has been cooperating. This is going to be a massive benefit for Mexico, I believe. I still think it's going to be year to year, but he really is going to want to punish Canada after this.
And with Doug Ford, I mean, if you don't know who he is, he's the PM of Ontario. He's an idiot and he has massive TDS syndrome. But he spent about the past, 4 or 5 months with Mark Carney doing things to his appendage, I will say, to Mark Carney's appendage. And now, because he trusted him so much and he relied on him so much because of his TDS syndrome, he's seeing the consequences for his people that are going to be very angry at him.
Well, the election's coming up as well. It doesn't look like Carney's going to be able to sway another conservative to have a majority government and stop that election. I think Doug Ford wants to come back to the Conservative Party now and pretend like he was never Mark Carney's best friend.
But he was.
Okay, let's go into the next story here. And I love this take from Bannon. Bannon always tells it straight. Let's hear what he has to say.
A lot of people don't like him anymore.
People absolutely hate Bannon. I don't mind him. A lot of people claim he's a neocon.
You claim I'm a neocon, so there we go.
I don't think he's a neocon. I think he's America first. But he is a China hawk at that.
So am I. From Bannon's War Room, quote, Mark Carney is an enemy of the United States.
Should I stop calling you a neocon, Nat, and call you Baby Bannon?
Sure.
Carney is an enemy of the United States. It's obvious. He's partnered, as they've been infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party and radical Islam. Mm-hmm. They love beta males. They feast off beta males like Carney. They feast off these people. What he did in Beijing was tantamount to an economic declaration of unrestricted warfare against the United States of America. And this is why President Trump's been hammering him. The Canadians, it's your problem, and you better clean it up. Carney is an enemy.
Yeah, if the Canadians don't clean this up in this next election that's expected to be called, that country is literally going to fall off a cliff and there is going to be no saving it. This is literally the last election and the last chance. Mark Carney has showed his cards, and his cards are China, China, China.
But they have always been. And again, when he was as the head of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, and when he was playing behind the strings and moving things behind the scenes, for example, when Trudeau was in office, all of this was already obvious. And again, the documents show it, and the trade and the deals that he's done with his own Brookfield asset management company.
No, I disagree.
He was invested in the Middle East as well.
No, but he's
via the U.S.
His personal investments with Brookfield
are in the U.S., but then
in the U.S.
The things that he was doing to connect even further with China is also clearly there, but people apparently never thought of it, thought that was going to continue to happen in Canada.
Okay, let's go to the next story here.
From The Intellectualist, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says criminals exploit irresponsible American gun laws and weak U.S. border enforcement to move illegal firearms into Canada, saying the U.S. platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate.
Yeah, and this is the European Union line, and he's restating it at the same time he's making a Chinese trade deal and saying, I'm choosing China over the United States.
Tariffs are not the only American policies that are threatening our economy and our society. They're also threatening the safety of our communities. Criminals are taking advantage of irresponsible American gun laws and their weak border enforcement to bring illegal guns into Canada. Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. The impacts of other...
Still to this day, they have the North America Free Trade Agreement, and that's what is really supplying,
USMCA.
that's what's floating the Canadian economy. If that ends, and it's very likely to end now that he's taking these actions, Trump's going to have to announce he wants to end it, and then it takes 6 months. So 6 months after the announcement, the United States could be out of that agreement. I mean, when Canada falls apart, they have one man or two men to think, I guess, Trudeau and Mark Carney. And Mark Carney is the one that really put the nail in the coffin.
But at the same time, he's blaming it all on the U.S. and on his TDS and on the unrestricted firearms that can, move back and forth. He doesn't police the gangs because he doesn't want to be racist. And that's also why there's so many gangs in Canada still working. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's go into the EU now.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if we have comments. Yeah. Rafa says, are you getting something from my humble subscription in the VIP live on RUMBLE? Yes, and thank you so much. And we are very grateful for it.
Yeah, thank you. You have been our longest supporter right from the beginning, especially on Rumble.
Yes.
So,
Neo says, Trump said to report it today about Carney's deals. That's okay. That's what he should be doing. I feel like that is it. And also says, looks like Trump is okay with decisions Carney makes.
Oh, sorry. We did skip the last story, and it was one I said I would talk about.
But I closed it now.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you were tapping the tape.
I'll talk about it anyway. The Court of Appeals in Canada has ruled that the executive powers that the United States or that Canada tried to use during the truckers' protest were absolutely illegal on every single level, and that every single appeal will be turned down. This is fantastic news. There's one more step, and that's the government can bring it to the Supreme Court. There's no guarantee the Supreme Court's actually going to hear it at this point. That being said, this really sets hopefully the correct precedent for next time, that they're saying it's not okay, and the Canadian government, if they want to use emergency powers, really better think it through. So there will be no arrest in Canada for that illegal use of emergency powers, though. What are you doing?
Trying to read something for the next comment, but I don't know what that symbol is.
Okay, let's go.
Rafa says, it's good that they're talking about China infiltration, but when will they talk about weird symbol I can't decipher, infiltration in the U.S.? So I don't know what it means. That's what I was trying to see.
Maybe it's Nazi?
No, it's like a green thing.
Well, I can't see it.
I can't figure it out. I think you can put it on RUMBLE, Rafa.
Okay, let's go into the EU now.
Yes, hold on. Where am I? There we go. Okay, moving on to the EU, and it starts with this, which I think you have to intro because I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I was actually watching, there was analysis being taken on international law, the neocon movement, and what Europe's stance was on the military. And their idea in around 2004 was actually a very popular idea within Europe. Most European countries thought this was the future of the world. And that was the example of metrosexual superpower as far as the military goes. What they thought is the EU had evolved past all these other peasant countries that were might makes right, and that every other country would build alliances like the EU had built an alliance, and we would uphold to international law, and the EU would be the center of the world and hold all military power. And that's kind of what this article says. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, especially considering where we're at today. The EU outsourced their military to the United States, outsourced their energy to Russia, outsourced their manufacturing to China. No, they didn't. China doesn't have.
China holds the UK's power grid now.
Yeah, but they outsourced everything, and now they're wondering why they're no longer a superpower. And this was their military strategy.
But what did they mean by metrosexual?
Why don't you read the first paragraph?
It won't let me read it. I have to be. Oh, maybe it does.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, hold on. The metrosexual superpower. The stylish European Union struts past the bumbling United States and on the catwalk of diplomacy. According to Michael Flocker's 2003 bestseller, The Metrosexual's Guide to Style, A Handbook for the Modern Man. The trend-setting male icons of the 21st century combine the coercive strengths of Mars and the seductive wiles of Venus. Put simply, metrosexual men are muscular but suave, confident yet image-conscious, assertive yet clearly in touch with their feminine sides, just like many are today. Just consider British soccer star David Beckham. He is married to former Spice Girl Victoria Posh Adams, but his combination of athleticism
Okay,
and
you can kind of leave it there, but they go into relating metrosexuality to military to military powers.
Geopolitics is much the same. American neoconservatives such as Robert Kagan look down upon the feminine Venus-like Europeans, giving their narcissistic obsession with building a postmodern bureaucratic paradise.
Yeah, and I actually recommend this article if you want to get an absolute laugh. And the fact that this was not only an article, this was very popular within military circles within the European Union around 2004. They thought they were going to be the new center of military power, and they were going to do that through international bodies, international law, the UN. They were above the heathens of the United States, China, and Russia.
But then don't you think that non-interventionism is quite much like that kind of thinking? Zero interventionism, I should say.
Yeah, but that's when you get virtue signaling. That's when you get, there's all kinds of things that you get under this that you just get strands of authoritarianism rather than blunt honesty when it comes to the military. So, okay, I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I found it very humorous. So let's get into this next article though.
From Marinoff, quote, breaking.
Okay, don't use the voice. I like Tucker. I understand he's not great on everything, but let's just give it the respect it deserves.
Which is none. Tucker. Qatari Carlson reports Russia is considering.
Stop. I don't mind Tucker.
UK
I know he's wrong on some things, and I've called him out on those things. This particular thing is important.
Well, what I'm saying is he's compromised. Tucker's point, this should be the biggest history in the world and nobody's covering it, that Russia apparently is considering nuking the UK and Germany.
Okay, and this is a very important interview he does, and he has ties to Russia, so he gets these interviews. This is probably the second leading intellectual within Russia. That being said, if Putin falls out of power, this particular intellectual and his faction within the Russian political sphere is most likely to take power, and they are pushing for nuclear war. They are pushing for a more militarized outcome. Right here, you're going to see Tucker talk about it, but later on in the episode, he interviews him. I highly recommend watching it because it's a good insight to who would take over Russia if Putin is ever taken out of power. And I cringe to think that this faction would actually take over. Putin's the one kind of holding Russia back right now.
Let's stop lying. This was not an unprovoked invasion. Putin just randomly went over the line into eastern Ukraine and stole these oblasts. He stole this land that belonged to another people. That's a total lie. And it's not a defense of Putin to call it out as a lie because it is. And everybody knows it now. The truth is that in 2001, Putin, same guy, same leader, asked the Bush administration in person, directly to George W. Bush, I would like to join NATO. I would like to join the defensive alliance that exists to keep me from moving west into Western Europe. In other words, you won. I'm joining your team. And due in part to his own limitations as a leader and due in part to the counsel that he received from Condoleezza Rice at the time, George W. Bush turned down that offer and prevented Russia from joining NATO. And the guest we're going to speak to in a moment, if you're wondering if he has a good track record of calling future events, said at the time, this decision to turn down Vladimir Putin's, 25 years ago, Vladimir Putin's request to join NATO, to join the West, to all be in it together, to work together. This decision made by the Bush administration guarantees a collision with the West. We are now on a collision course. And of course, he was absolutely right. Because
okay, you can leave it there. I do highly recommend this interview because when he actually gets into the interview, it shows the psyche of the other half of Russia that maybe aren't as restrained as Vladimir Putin. And what he talks about is nuclear war, bombing Germany, bombing the city of London as well. So there is an ideological thread within Russia that is far, far more right-wing and military-minded than Vladimir Putin. Okay, let's get into the next story.
And the guy he was interviewing is Sergei Karagnikov. No, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And again, with the European Union here,
from Shadow of Ezra, quote, Emmanuel Macron's eyes blood red during his military address, where he urged Europeans to obtain weapons like Russia's. We Europeans must acquire these new weapons capable of changing the balance of power if we want to remain credible, which is what we said in our past video about international law. Europe seems to be preparing for a major war with Putin.
And this is an issue, I'm glad a European leader has finally brought up, and that is Russia has the most advanced missile technology in the world. There's not a missile defense system that can defend against 3 of their modern missiles. That includes U.S. technology. The U.S. has stated they're currently trying to catch up when it comes to missile technology. The U.S. may be able to catch up in quick fashion, and they have said as much. That being said, the French aren't going to be able to. This is a 10 to a 15-year technology, a lacking of technology. It will take a long time for France to catch up.
Le tir d'un missile de très longue portée.
Okay, you can kind of leave it there. Emmanuel Macron has been talking tough, and I don't know if I put the article in here, but he sent troops to Greenland saying if Donald Trump does anything against Greenland, France will defend the sovereignty of that country. And it will mean war if any French troops die. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Emmanuel Macron is
purchase it, not fight for it.
He's also been putting out a lot of videos where he's marching in front of militaries or walking in front of his military, and people are saying that he's trying to act tough for the U.S. on social media.
He's stressed enough. He popped a blood vessel in his eye.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you're listening and you're not watching, the clip had Emmanuel Macron and his eye is just absolutely blood red. Maybe his wife/husband hit him like she did previously on the plane.
I think he's stressed enough where you just popped a blood vessel in his eye. This happened to you before when you were training. Well, now maybe it'll happen again because he's training again.
Okay, let's continue to go here.
From Basil the Great, quote, British patriot Tom Skinner says Vice President J.D. Vance is a legend. If you didn't know who he was, he's down-to-earth, normal, lovely family man.
Yeah, this was an interesting story that he told. I just thought we would play it.
You met the Vice President of the United States.
Yeah.
What did you talk about? Did you talk about your support for his boss? Did you say that you...
No. We drank about 10 pints of beer. We got bang on the whiskey. We spoke about the difference in states in USA and United Kingdom. We spoke about how football should play with your feet and not your hands. We had a bit of banter.
Did you like him?
Mate, I'll be honest with you. If you didn't know who he was, he's a normal guy like me and you. He's a very, very down-to-earth, normal man. Lovely family man. We had a good crack. It's like when you walk into a pub and you don't know who you're drinking with. You bump into someone, you have a few pints, yeah? You might not politically agree with someone, but he's a person. He was a good person. And we had a right good crack, if I'm honest.
Would you... Did what he show you about politics and about his life now as the Vice President lead you to think that going into politics would be a good thing for you?
We didn't talk about politics.
No.
Mate, we did not talk about politics.
Once?
No.
Come on.
No, I swear, honestly, we didn't. It's a barbecue. We got on a piss.
And that being said, if they want to put up another candidate, they need to find somebody better than J.D. Vance. Right now, they want to leapfrog Marco Rubio into that spot. I think J.D. Vance is the best candidate they got. I'm open to other ideas. I'm also open to the fact that a lot of people on the conservative side would like to see the conservatives lose in 2028 because it benefits them most. Why? Because J.D. Vance isn't part of that uniparty. Marco Rubio is. That's kind of why they want to put him into position. But if they can't get Rubio in that position, I think they would rather have Gavin Newsom than J.D. Vance because Gavin Newsom is part of that uniparty thinking, that neocon thinking. Even somebody that's not part of necessarily wanting J.D. Vance or somebody else that may want J.D. Vance to lose for other reasons would be Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes would have a lot to gain if Gavin Newsom wins. If Gavin Newsom absolutely destroys the country for 4 years, a figure like Nick Fuentes could absolutely rise. But with the conservatives in power, it's really hard to go further and further right. Okay.
I think he won't be old enough by then. If he wants to run for president. I mean, he can help build a coalition, but
what he's doing is he's actually mirroring what Charlie Kirk was doing at his age. So,
but back to crazy UK. Dan Wooten, or the EU, Dan Wooten says Lucy Connolly, who has already spent 10 months locked up for a singular post on X, is facing a recall to prison because she retweeted a joke about Trump arresting Keir Starmer. Officials told her it was inciting violence. So for a long time, there hasn't been any free speech in the UK.
Well, no, I also brought this up because Donald Trump called out this case very specifically and said if they lock her up, there could be consequences for that, number one. And number two, they didn't let her into the United States, meaning the UK didn't let her leave the airport, even though the federal government in the United States requested her come to the US for a visit.
Your probation officer is literally patrolling what you say post by post and trying to decipher if a joke or if something which could be humorous in some way means that you should be sent back to prison? Do they really have a right to do this? What's going on? Fill me in.
I don't know. As you know, I've got the lawyers onto it, but I am at the stage now. My original tweet aside, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about those words. I genuinely don't know what is okay by their standards to say and what is not. I've been pulled up for several things last week with a warning letter, which is like telling me that it's not of good behaviour, and none of which I'm in agreement with.
So what is it that you've posted that they consider wrong?
I reshared a tweet of someone else's where they jokingly, tongue in cheek, said, "Could you come and get if Trump could come and take Starmer like they did, in Iran, in Venezuela," and apparently that somebody called probation and said they were very offended by this post and it's inciting violence.
What?
So apparently
sorry, just to clarify, this is really important, Lucy, because it shows you the madness of the system. So sorry, this is a joke post made by someone else, not even authored by you, but retweeted by you, which makes the gag, which we saw all over social media. It was hilarious. And let's be honest, a lot of us actually feel this way. We think, please, Trump, come and take Starmer, come and arrest Starmer. Probation are investigating you because of that, because you retweeted a joke?
Yeah, and something else that I said on GB News that they did, I was talking about the Al Fatah situation. But the point being, I'm genuinely at the point now where I feel like, can you just give me a list of things that I am allowed to say? Because every time I say something that you don't agree with or that you don't find funny, you're threatening to recall me to prison. And obviously I don't want that to happen. And I completely appreciate for all the lunatics out there that I'm on licence, I must, toe the line and adhere my licence conditions. But again, they tell us time and time and time again that we have free speech in this country. And those that will argue with me goes, well, we do have free speech, but we don't have incitement. We don't have violence, da-da-da-da-da. Fine, even if I accept that, what about, I don't think you will find anything on my Twitter since I've made a return to Twitter, since I've been to prison, that you would deem offensive or
okay, you can leave it
incitement.
there. And this just shows the absolute lunacy of the UK government. And Trump is calling out on a consistent basis this specific case. He made a statement on, and I was going to grab the clip, but man, we had a ton of articles today. But he's upset about this, and he does not want to see her put back to jail. And I'm glad this is actually getting national attention from President Trump himself.
Mm-hmm. Because he, and repeatedly, he has done and then made the case and point that the UK, number one, shouldn't be persecuting or telling US companies what they can and cannot do, but also that the UK is supposed to have free speech and that they've completely gone back on that.
Well, Keir Starmer, when he's standing in front of Trump, is telling him we're not doing this. We have absolute free speech. This is nonsense. And then Trump goes back home to the United States and he thinks that Trump's not going to see any of this. I mean, you can see this on social media, let alone Trump has the entire power of an intelligence agency behind him.
Another wrong turn for the UK from Basil the Great, quote, Rupert Lowe makes major announcement, party is on the way. Quote, Westminster is a vile snake pit. Quote, Farage was supposed to destroy the establishment, not join them. That is why I backed him for so long. I was wrong to do so. Quote, a real alternative must be provided. I will do that.
Yeah, now I don't know who this gentleman is or what the alternative he's thinking he's going to create or what the fundamental principles are. But what I will say is over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of stories coming out of Reform UK, which they're turning their back on their fundamental principles, whether it was the jibby jab, whether it was immigration. They said one thing, and now they're trying to expand to a big tent party where they can bring Muslims and a bunch of other people in. And that's changing the promises they made to their original supporters.
Like an ideological big tent party.
People are really noticing Reform UK may very well just become another one of these political parties, that it's just a hegemon. Now, at this point, they're still the best choice you have if you live in the UK. That being said, I wouldn't trust them with my life. And I would be looking into another party if this gentleman's creating something. I'm at least going to look what the fundamental principles of this new party is. But it's very hard in that parliamentary system to gain power. That's why I do like the US system so much. It may seem bipolar at times, but it really allows the voter to have a lot more power than in a parliamentary system.
Yes. And I mean, same as in Canada.
I mean, Trump was able to create a bit of a revolution just by himself. Now, he was frozen out in the first term, and now we're seeing him really try to get America First candidates in there. But at least you're able to get that initial push. In a parliamentary system, that's not possible.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, something insane that is similar to what they try to do in Canada as well. From Basil the Great, quote, Andrew Brigham confirms fears that the BBC are pushing to make YouTube a license fee platform. BBC made it so you had to pay a license fee to watch ITV, Channel 4, and Sky, which are channels in the UK. Now they're going to do the same to YouTube. The BBC should be defunded, and hopefully Trump just continues to try and sue them for everything they have.
I would love to see YouTube stand up to this and say, no, you can't be on our platform if you're going to charge your citizens a licensing fee. But they just want more viewers. And I'm sure they're going to let them on there.
They want more viewers, the viewers that they can't get.
So let's just run a scenario by you. We know that last week it was confirmed that more people are now watching YouTube than the BBC. And now we've heard that the BBC are going to give up on their iPlayer and they're going to stream their programmes on YouTube. Well, that means that on YouTube, you'll be able to access live BBC programmes, which means the BBC could claim that we've all got to buy a TV licence to watch YouTube. And don't think the BBC wouldn't do this, because I was involved when I was in Parliament in 2014 in the renegotiation of the BBC charter. And they actually wanted, as part of that charter renewal in 2014, to make you buy a TV licence if you watched Channel 4 player, the Sky player, or the ITV player on the internet. We managed to stop them having access to those funds, but that's what's in the mindset of the BBC. So, beware. Thank you very much.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And this is going to be complete collusion, because if you don't know, right now you have to pay a TV licensing fee if you watch the BBC. A lot of people are now watching their media on the computer, but if the government can claim if you watch YouTube, you're watching the BBC, you have to pay that licensing fee, then what's going to happen? They're going to collect billions from that licensing fee, and they're going to pay YouTube a lot of advertising to promote the BBC. So it's going to be circular dollars going around from YouTube to the BBC, BBC right back to YouTube, and they're going to hold hands and promote one another. This is going to happen, I think, with a lot of international news agencies.
Yes.
So.
But now to your comments, because the EU section is over. Rafa says, thank you. I'm really happy to help a little bit and love your content. No, thank you so much. And thank you for all of you for giving us your time and attention.
Yeah, and thanks for all the comments.
Rafa specifically, yeah, and thank you so much for commenting. Rafa also says, by the way, the emoji was a box of juice. Okay.
Oh.
So now I can reread it, and I kind of think where you're going.
The J's.
It's good that they're talking about China infiltration, but when will they talk about
the
juice box infiltration in the US?
Yeah.
Do you want to reply?
No.
Okay. Neo says, poor Beckhams, even their superpower family image has been destroyed recently by their son. Britain is crumbling on all fronts. Yeah, sadly. And Neo also says, powerful speech by Tucker. Everything he said was on point.
Well, we're going to see what happens in Davos. Davos, I think a lot of things are going to be laid out maybe in public with Trump's speech, but behind closed doors. And I think Trump's really trying to force the UK into a realignment. We'll see what happens there.
And then Rafa says, maybe it's an unpopular opinion around here, but I think sending troops over there was the right move, despite not having a chance against the U.S. or against us. Against the U.S., they can't just let Trump take everything he wants.
With Greenland. He's talking about Greenland.
Okay.
Trump's going to cut a deal for Greenland, and I think that what's going to happen is he no longer wants to be part of the Ukraine war. He always says that's Biden's war. He doesn't want to be a part of it. I agree with him on that, but he can't just pull out. Otherwise, Russia's going to have total victory, and it's going to go on his shoulders. So what he's going to do is he's going to say, I have a peace deal with Russia. We're going to go with that unless you want to finance that war. The EU is going to say, well, we don't have money to finance the war. He's going to say, well, I have $1 trillion for you for Greenland. You can finance the war. And that works for the EU because $1 trillion or even 500 billion is probably enough to fund it for the next 3 years till Trump's out of office. That's always been their game plan. They want to keep the Ukraine war until Trump's out of office. They're hoping they get a Newsom or a Marco Rubio in there that they can then escalate that war into World War III. So I think a lot of things are going to happen at Davos, and I don't think Trump's going to bring military troops. I think he's going to buy it.
And Rafa says, and if Trump is actually concerned about security, now Greenland has a bit more of that.
Yeah.
A bit more security.
Well, not really. I mean, France flew over 13 troops.
Yeah. Germany had like 12 or something ridiculous.
And
like
Denmark said they were doing more Arctic security and they added a dog sled team. Now they're asking for their jets that they gave Ukraine back so they can send them over to Greenland. They gave all their weapons away to Ukraine. They can't even defend Greenland. Like, it's crazy.
And he just wants to buy, like, okay.
And you have to remember, Trump's shaking up the geopolitical board. Greenland could have nothing to do with anything, but it's got everybody flipping their lids like a magic trick. He's waving Greenland over here where he really wants to do something over here, maybe with the Federal Reserve or something else.
Yeah, and we had talked about that magic trick concept that Trump applies a lot.
Yeah,
he's
a
like,
lot.
look over here, don't look over here, and then I can do this.
Yeah, and sometimes the magic trick just happens to work out for him too.
Yeah.
So maybe he's like, maybe Greenland was always the distraction. The magic trick was over here, but in the end, he's like, oh, they're actually wanting to sell Greenland. Okay.
I'll take it. Because again, I think he's not going to invade Greenland. He's going to buy Greenland. And the Greenlanders?
Yeah, he's offering them $500,000. It started with 150. Now he's offering $500,000 per citizen.
Should we move to Greenland?
Well, food
before they buy it?
Cost of living's too high, I think. Let's go in Latin America where we live now.
No, we're not moving to the other one?
Oh.
Do you want to do Australia?
Oh,
no?
I missed Australia.
Okay. We're
I
going
actually have an Australian story that's not from the UK today.
Or from, where was the other one? Wherever else that was. Brussels.
I get all the accents confused. They all sound the same to me.
Okay, that's good. They don't. They do have distinct accents.
They do.
New Zealand is the funniest.
But when I'm gathering, you don't know how many news stories I gather, how much news I watch throughout the day. I mean, you tell me it's so easy to put together the show.
It is. I do it for my Spanish show. It goes great.
Your Spanish show is not nearly as good as my show.
From Australians versus Rafa begs to differ. From Australians versus the agenda, quote, the Greens will not be supporting the legislation in its current form. And it's the same, I believe, legislation that we've been speaking about a lot.
Yeah, and we did show a conservative politician that had an absolute fantastic.
He wasn't conservative even.
An absolute fantastic take, but this is the Green Party from Australia, and even they're against this new legislation and censorship. Maybe for different reasons ideologically, but I'll take what I can get. They're really trying to strip freedoms away from the people in Australia right now, and they're trying to do it off the back of that attack that recently happened.
So this is about the hate speech and censorship bill that they really want to pass.
This legislation is 144 pages long. The government has chosen, after repeated political attacks from the coalition, to rush this legislation into Parliament. And every stakeholder meeting we have raises fresh concerns and issues with this legislation. The government has chosen to rush this legislation into Parliament without the usual processes for scrutiny. The coalition now is complaining about that, but it was the coalition who ran a weeks-long political campaign to put us in this situation, and it shows how the toxic politics of the coalition being responded to like this by the government does no one any good, and it definitely doesn't progress the national interest. We will not be.
And I'm glad to see this because we played another clip from a different politician on the last episode, and it looks like there's starting to get a coalition of politicians that may be able to resist this. This is similar to things that happen in the United States, I would just give the case of immigration. They say immigration is a problem, so now we have to bring digital ID in. They create a problem, and then they want to strip people's freedoms from that problem. Now, it's not to say that immigration isn't a problem. It's to say you don't need to strip freedoms from citizens in order to solve these problems. If you do, you're really an authoritarian government, and you're really showing your cards there. Something similar is happening in Australia there. And 144 pages of legislation. Imagine what's in that thing.
Yeah.
They're just trying to hide all kinds of things.
And regarding Australia, Trim Briggs says Australia banned Candace. Maybe they had a point. Like now, maybe we might all think. Maybe
No,
they had
no.
I'm not for banning.
As crazy as she is, and I'll put her on the cover, and I'll say I followed her. I'll even give her another chance and watch her in the future when she's done with this TPUSA thing and this time traveling thing. Free speech is fundamentally important. The most crazy in society need to have a right to speak, and the most hateful in society need to have the right to speak. It's a slippery slope, and we're seeing that slope become so much more slippery in the rest of the West right now outside of the United States.
Let's move on to Latin America, which is continues to be heating up in news items. And where we currently are now, starting with Mexico. From U.S. Homeland Security News, and I will give a caveat to a lot of these videos. Update: U.S. Army helicopters with military vehicles were spotted landing near the Mexicali border. A temporary base has been set up. Mexicans are asking if America will liberate them from their narco regime.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily bring it for Mexicans are asking to be liberated. I brought it more for that they have the Chinooks and the helicopters to transport vehicles and things like this. A lot of the times, if they're going to want to do operations, even if it's in cooperation with the Mexican military, I know Scheinbaum's moving troops to the border. So is the U.S. The U.S. is setting up more permanent bases. They're both saying they're not cooperating with each other, but it gives the excuse for both to bring military to the border. And I think behind the scenes, they probably are cooperating, but a lot of the roads are going to be cut off from the cartels. So the fact that they do have the military equipment to fly vehicles and troops in and out and bypass any kind of roadblock is an important fact.
But I will say, especially regarding like a lot of videos that we have been seeing about the military and about things happening in Latin America, some and a lot of them are either older videos to, from scare people, or they're AI generated. So there is.
Why don't you play the video? Because it's not AI generated.
I closed it.
Oh, of course you did. You can't call a video AI and then it's something I grabbed.
No, I know, but we have.
And then not show
No,
up.
but I'm saying we have been seeing a lot of. Hold on, I'll find it.
Well, you can leave it because we're running out of time.
Okay.
So we should have been off air right now, but we'll go for another 45 minutes, I guess.
45.
Or maybe
we're almost
half,
done. We have
half an hour.
4 stories left.
No, we don't. We got 4 stories in Latin America.
No.
And then the Middle East, and then RUMBLE.
Eric Doherty says, quote, Justin, Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado has arrived for her White House meeting with President Trump. Machado has dedicated her prize 247 to Trump because she knows he's the president of peace.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was the press conference she had after, but let's play it to see what it was.
Okay. I think it's just her.
Okay, this was beforehand. She did give a press conference. I didn't grab that. She looked crazy in the press conference. She always looks crazy because she has too much plastic surgery and she has this smile that looks straight off of central casting from a horror film. That being said, I don't think Trump's going to put her in power. He will hold elections in 12 months. That being said, if the party that's currently in power, which is the old regime, actually does a good job, they're very likely to win the next election. As I've been doing research into Venezuela, what I found out was Maduro was extremely, extremely unpopular, but the ideology in which his party exists within is actually still very popular in the country. So if they can do a good job over the next 6 or 12 months, it's going to be interesting what actually happens in that election. It won't be a shoo-in necessarily. And I know a lot of neoliberals in the international community think it's a shoo-in because she won the last election. She may not have won it if it wasn't Maduro the one running.
And that's why we'll have to see, and why a lot of people are pushing for elections and not just regime changes.
But they temporarily have to have the old regime in there to create stability within the country. Otherwise, you could see military factions kind of break off if they're threatened with immediate prosecution. So...
And then you had this, which I don't know how to intro because I don't know what it's about. From POV Mexico, quote, "You can live very comfortably in Mexico with 15,000 pesos, 1,500 pesos a week."
Yeah, and I just brought something in about Mexico and how much it costs to live. And I have a secondary clip of an American talking about cost of living in America. And I just wanted to contrast the two. This gentleman actually contrasts in this video somebody that's moved to Mexico and how somebody that lives in Mexico actually knows how to save a lot more money. Let's get into it.
You can live very comfortably with 1,500 pesos a week. All right, bro, I'm gonna have to stop you right there because ain't no way that you're living here on 1,500 pesos a week in Mexico and living good. Because I'm currently here in the beautiful city of Monterrey.
I love it when Americans come to Mexico and try to tell me, somebody who was born and lives in Mexico, how much they need to spend in order to survive. First of all, you live in Monterrey, one of, if not the most expensive city in Mexico. Monterrey is more expensive than most U.S. cities. I live in Durango. Secondly, I own, you rent. This is one of my many properties. And thirdly, I live by myself and with my pug, and I have zero debt. I don't owe any bank or anybody anything, not a dime. I spend between 1,500 and 2,000 pesos a week. I make way more than that, but there's no need to spend all of my money. You shop at the supermarket. I shop at a tianguis. I shop at my local tianguis where I can get 4 kilos of mangoes for 30 pesos. I got my vegetables, my cilantro, my pimienta, my pepper, all of my food I get at a tianguis. Every Sunday, go watch the video, and I spend less than 300 pesos, 400 pesos tops. It's not my fault that you have high spending habits. He then goes on to ask me about health insurance, retirement, car insurance, etc. Well, as being someone who was born in Mexico and has Mexican citizenship, I have access to low cost or free healthcare if I choose to. Do you have health insurance? That's such an American question. No, I have something better. I have universal healthcare. And as for retirement, Mexico has a universal pension plan for Mexican citizens. And also remember how I said that I don't spend all of my income? I make way more than 1,500 pesos a week, but whatever I don't spend goes into my savings or retirement or whatever. And as for the car note, car insurance, gasoline, this is my whip. I paid cash. Like I said, we Mexicans, we buy everything cash. We don't like being in debt. This is mine. And this thing only takes 5 liters of gasoline. And a liter of gas is like 23, 24 pesos, so you do the math. And I fill up like once every 2 weeks. And as for the insurance, I just pay my insurance yearly because it's cheaper. And the insurance for mopeds or scooters is nowhere near the price of insurance for cars. So yes, I live comfortably with 1,500 to 2,000 pesos a week. No need to overspend, and I know where all the good deals are. And everybody knows me, so I always get good deals. Fix your spending.
And
It was supposed to be 10 pesos a liter with AMLO, but that never happened. This guy is retarded. But all of them, the 3 of them, are all retarded. I'm sorry.
Who?
The 3 guys that we just watched.
There was only 2 guys on there.
No, there was the first guy that said,
That was
you
the-
can't. Then the black guy, and then this guy.
That first and the last guy were the same guy.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No.
Yes, it was.
It was 2 different guys.
He was responding. No.
Okay, fine. The
Why
2
don't you
guys.
rewind it?
The 2 guys. Because the one guy doesn't have a beard and looks like 10 years younger than the other one.
No, but if you do live outside the major centers like Mexico City, you can live reasonably. And a lot of places in the United States, even if you live outside of the city centers, it's still extremely, extremely expensive.
Rafa, let us know what you think. Because Rafa lives in a different state. I mean, we do live close to Mexico City.
Mexico
it's
City is
different.
expensive to live in, and I will say it's very expensive. That being said, I have asked and kind of researched property prices and values outside of Mexico City in the countryside. It is a
But I mean,
lot
at the
cheaper.
same time, look at where he lived.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the second video, and this is very interesting just to contrast it.
And you should have put a Canadian there too, because we were just talking about property prices in Canada and how Americans, yes, it's very expensive for Americans and their housing costs, but in Canada, it's even more insane.
ridiculous.
It says people are frustrated and crashing out with life.
I'm angry and I'm crashing out. Okay. My husband and I got a letter in the mail. It's probably the 3rd year in a row, I think, that our mortgage is going up another almost $100 a month. Okay. And I'm going to assume that that is because of the property tax. Tell me what the benefit is of owning a home. What? If I'm going to experience a raise, just like a tenant would at a rental property, why would I not save myself the maintenance costs, all the other costs that go into owning a home, property tax? If I'm going to experience a yearly increase, that's $1,200 a year. Not even just that pisses me off. It's everything else along with that. Okay? The health insurance. I will go down a long rabbit hole about that. But the health insurance, the car insurance, the quote we got for 2 cars that are paid off, by the way. Then we have to pay all this tax on everything. the sales tax, the income tax. That one, don't get me started on either. The property tax, all the other taxes. And we can get into the nitty gritty about all the other little increases that we see, right? The phone bills, all the subscriptions we have, even things as far as saying like the Easy Pass and the tolls going down the highway. It is literally never ending, and I'm angry. So then you want to sit there and tell me, oh, 40-hour work
you can
week,
kind
9
of
to
leave
5
it there. It's just to show people, and a lot of Western countries really feel like they're drowning in debt, and there isn't another option to live cheaply, live off grid, things like this. Even when you want to buy a little piece of property that's in the middle of nowhere, it still costs a ton of money in the United States.
But I will say here too, and you are even like in the countryside, you pay a lot more property tax in the countryside than in the city.
Yeah, but I've literally seen property for
And at the same
a few
time,
$1,000s here, which is
Yeah, but
insanely cheap.
it's. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for as
Yeah,
well. Like
well, what I'm
that
saying
might
is
be
you-
like a little
in the-
hut somewhere
in
that they're
the-
selling.
Yeah, in the United States and in Canada, you can't find that. That's the problem. Okay, if you think
In
it's
Canada, no. In the U.S.,
if you think
I'd
it's so
say-
cheap to live, I
yeah, but at the
disagree
same
with you.
time, how much are people being paid, and how much are people earning, and that is a big difference.
No, but what I'm saying is a lot of people work remotely, so that they come to other countries and stuff like this.
And then they get protested.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, let's move into the next story.
Also, just to,
Let's move into the next story. We gotta.
but we don't have free healthcare here. That's what I want to
But there is cheap healthcare here. There is a.
But not good.
Huh?
But not good.
Yeah, but it's a multiple tier system. I walked past three hospitals that are absolutely free to go in for most people.
Only if you work for certain.
Or if you're low income.
If you're low income, it's very different, and those are the ones that
Okay,
work.
let's go into the next story here.
Rafa, come save me. Okay, let's move on to the Middle East. And yes, I still have not changed the flag. I'll do it this weekend.
And we got two stories for the Middle East, and then we're going to go over to RUMBLE because we do got a couple stories that are a little bit too spicy for YouTube here tonight.
From the Patriot Oasis, quote, Secretary Bessent reveals that Iranian leadership is moving their money out of Iran. They're abandoning ship.
And this had been reported a few weeks ago. I wanted to wait to a credible U.S. official kind of said something. Scott Bessent is a credible U.S. official inside the Trump administration. So if this is true, and I'm not saying it is, the original source was from Juicebox News, and I just didn't know what to make of it. But if there is going to be a transition of power or somebody else coming out of power, you're going to see the old leadership move their money out first. That would be one of the first things they did.
Going to see to that. And Rob, the other thing as Treasury, who carries out the sanctions, we can see is we are now seeing the rats fleeing the ship, because we can see millions, tens of millions of dollars being wired out of the country, snuck out of the country by the Iranian leadership. So they are abandoning ship, and we are seeing it come into banks and financial institutions all over the world. And what we do at Treasury is we follow the money, whether it is through the typical banking system or through digital assets. We are going to trace these assets, and they will not be able to keep them.
You'll freeze those.
Going to see to that. And
Kind of looks like a
And
robot.
it's interesting that he's saying they're going to go after that money. That's almost non-incentivizing the current leadership to leave. If you let them leave with the money, at least they're gone. If they're saying they're going to threaten their money once it's out, assuming maybe they didn't put all their money, they did a test run, they're going to say, well, if they're going to take the money, we might as well just go down with the ship. I'd rather just give them an exit strategy, kind of what was rumored to happen to Maduro. They said they give him multiple options to kind of leave on his own. He decided not to do that. They're obviously not giving that option to the Iranian regime right now. So
Seems. And for Iran as well, from our now well quote, Reza Pahlavi, here's what happens after the regime falls.
yeah, and this is the U.S. pick for regime change leader, as well as the Jays want this gentleman to come in. It was actually said that Israel made him kind of cut ties because it wouldn't look good that he was so close to Israel for so many years. And he did. And now he's got a lot more acceptance mainstream because he's looked at as a little bit more independent than he used to be.
Our friends around the world. Under the yoke of the Islamic Republic, Iran is identified in your minds with terrorism, extremism, and poverty. The real Iran is a different Iran. A beautiful, peace-loving, and flourishing Iran. It is the Iran that existed before the Islamic Republic, and it is the Iran that will rise again from its ashes the day the Islamic Republic falls. So let me be clear about how a free Iran will act towards its neighbors and the world after the fall of this regime. In security and foreign policy, Iran's nuclear military program will end. Support for terrorist groups will cease immediately. A free Iran will work with regional and global partners to confront terrorism, organized crime, drug trafficking, and extremist Islamism. Iran will act as a friend and a stabilizing force in the region, and it will be a responsible partner in global security. In diplomacy, relations with the United States will be normalized.
Okay, you can leave it.
and
I
our
believe
friendship-
it's quite a long clip, but he says later on, you need to keep protesting if you want there to be a new Iran. They're trying to foment a color revolution. We've shown 3 clips of this gentleman now. The first one was he's kind of pushed into the position. He was really awkward. The second clip we had showed a few days after that was he was very hard-lined, and now they're going for the third thing is the people in Iran need to foment a color revolution. We have a replacement ready to go. I mean, they're really trying to orchestrate a regime change within the country. I just don't think it's going to work. If it would have happened, it would have happened already. That being said, if the report is true that some of the leadership is trying to move money out of the country, maybe. I mean, the reporting coming out of Iran is just so sporadic. There's so much AI. I don't know what to believe. I don't want to see a regime change in Iran. I think it will create mass instability within that region and create mass immigration into the EU and other countries, as well as a potential war between local factions, whether it's Israel, the United States might come in there. I mean, any number of things could happen with a regime change in Iran.
But now we'll read your comments before we move on to RUMBLE. So let's start with Rafa, who did reply when I said, Rafa, help me. Rafa says, here in San Luis, it's not that bad. Rafa lives in Mexico as well. I'd say it's a little above average in the country. Example, I saw some old but big and decent apartments in a centric zone for less than 11,000.
That's really cheap. That's
11,000.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $550.
11,000 Mexican pesos.
That's 550 US dollars.
For rent, I'm guessing.
That must be for rent. Yeah.
Okay. And Neo says, I love Nat's reactions on these shorts, the Mexican video shorts. Well, because I actually know that. I actually know what the people are lying about. So I can react to it. Neo also says, it is said Canadians are totally dependent on grocery stores and food banks. Yes, and we've said it multiple times as well. In many countries, you can grow your own food in your garden, have chickens, etc. But here in Canada, it's very much different. I meant sad. Yeah, that too. And I mean, we got
and
to
the
live through
small
it as
stores
well.
here, even though we live in Mexico City is really expensive. But if you go to the Walmart, Costco, it's still a lot cheaper than the US and Canada. That being said, if you do go to the small stores around the corner
And
for little
markets,
vegetables, it's extremely cheap. Yeah. Like it's crazily
and I mean,
cheap.
comparatively to Canada, like where a banana is $1.
Yeah.
More like how much was a banana in Canada?
I don't know. I know for a chunk of cheese that would cost $20 or $25 in Canada, you get for about $5 here.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go into. Oh, you're gonna switch it? No,
Let's go over to RUMBLE.
And if you're not subscribed, please do so. We're really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and we have been getting throttled by YouTube a lot lately.
Yes, and thank you so much to Rafa, Neo, and Non for all the comments. And we'll see you in a second over at RUMBLE. Hold on.
Okay.